Welcome, welcome everybody to another edition of the Pocket Locker Podcast. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, folks, I am in airplane mode, gang. We have got a special show for you this evening. A double feature. It has been so long since I've done a double feature, but I'm very excited about this one. Both pieces actually come to us from Legion Miller. So if you're not already subscribed to Legion Miller, please go subscribe to this woman's channel so I can sleep better tonight. Because I'm gonna just be all worried that I'm out here using this woman's content and y'all are not subscribing. So if you're not subscribed to Legion Miller, please go ahead and subscribe. I'm gonna go ahead right there. Bam, put the link in the chat. But look, these are two things that we really have to talk about. The first video, we're going to be talking about what's going on with, in particular, Jill Stein, but more generally, third-party voters, abstainers, and I'm going to be talking about some of my insights about this particular phenomenon. And then we're going to be talking about Theo bros. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the main event of the evening. All right, our first video is about Jill Stein. Let's get to it, y'all.
With the U.S. presidential election.
Wait, pause. I done fucked up. I done fucked up already. Look, let me go ahead and see who's here. First off, look at the trees is in the house. Appreciate it. Who else is here? Sarah's in the house. Appreciate y'all for being early. Let's go ahead and get into the mode. And then we gotta take a little toes. All right, so one more time. We got mode. Cheers. Got to get a little sip of this whiskey to get right. A little bit of that fuck it juice. All right, now we're ready to go.
Just 3 weeks away, the discourse around Green Party candidate Jill Stein is getting heated. I've heard talking points from all sides, from Jill Stein is the only moral way to vote to Jill Stein is a grifter. But what's actually true? Will she save democracy? Spoiler, no she won't. Or will she be its downfall? Spoiler, maybe. Oh, also, she was just endorsed by former KKK leader David Duke, so
there's
much to
that.
talk about. Let's discuss the controversial presidential run of Jill Stein. It's fall, and the holidays are somehow.
All right, y'all. We're gonna go ahead and skip the capitalism. You know, we're a bunch of naughty socialists around here. So we sometimes skip the capitalism.
This is a conversation coming from the left. I am a leftist critiquing Jill Stein and our political system. Many people in my comment section think I'm not leftist enough and demand leftist purity from me, but I've been taking inspiration from a lot of.
All right, so look, let's first off, I want to deal with some of these comments.
Critiquing Jill Stein and our political system. Many people in my comment section think I'm not leftist enough and.
All right, so here we go. Calling yourself a leftist and complaining about the left is laughable when you're clearly a liberal. However, you are intelligent, explain things in an accessible way, and I like your content, even if you stab us in the back if things get too dicey. So I'll comment, like, and subscribe, but if you come to my compound in the nuclear wasteland, I don't think I'm letting you in. Okay. You're a liberal and not a leftist, and you're still not understanding some key things. Okay. And you, my dear liberal, accept voting for a blue fascist instead of a red one to actually change anything. And you, my dear liberal, expect voting for a blue fascist instead of a red one to actually change anything. Okay, look. So go ahead. You can type out your little same comments to me, because let me tell you what this is about. Y'all motherfucking woke skulls, we can motherfucking woke scold you too. And that's exactly what we're going to do here today. So go ahead, tell me I'm not a leftist, I'm a liberal, I'm a Democrat. I don't really care, to be honest. I don't really, to be honest, I kind of define myself typically as progressive. I don't really see myself as a liberal. I sometimes see myself as a leftist. I just think I don't know, who cares, whatever. But look, I ain't with the purity shit test either. And I'm just telling you, that shit sounds crazy to me. And you could go ahead and leave the same shit in my comments if you feel like it.
Demand leftist purity from me, but I've been taking inspiration from a lot of activists on social media, including one
What
named
up, Michael
Marie
Bell?
Soledad. And so, credit where credit is due, I'm reclaiming my leftism from the trolls on the internet,
There you
who are
go.
mostly men, I've noticed, who tell me that because I make money for my labor and am not willing to sacrifice myself on the pyre of leftist perfectionism to prove myself worthy of the title, that I'm just a lib. Okay, so you read Marx once. That doesn't impress me much. On the other side, I have people demanding journalistic integrity from me and acting absolutely shocked that I show my bias. Let me be very clear. I am a lawyer who also has a political science degree, and I care very deeply about the accuracy of what I'm saying. However, I am not a journalist. I have never claimed to be a journalist, nor have I ever claimed to be unbiased, nor do I think it's humanly possible for anyone to truly be unbiased. And anyone claiming they are unbiased, especially content creators you found on the internet, should make you very suspicious. Okay, great. Now that we've gotten situated, let's dive in. David.
All right. Now, look, just in case people are out there wondering, I am also not a journalist. I'm also not a lawyer. I was very interested in law as a young man and young professional. So I did a number of legal internships. I worked in a prosecutor's office. I worked in a law department for the city of Newark. I did used to help prosecute cases and be in court every day. I've also been heavily involved in the Democratic Party in the state of New Jersey. I've also helped run campaigns, in particular a mayoral campaign in Michigan, also for a Democrat. So I see myself as some random person on YouTube, but I am a scientist, and so I do care about the accuracy of what I say and the truthfulness of the things that I put forth on my platform. And I also see myself, to be honest, a bit of a political insider. Like, it's a very unique experience to grow up in politics, working on campaigns, working very close to candidates, knowing candidates, and sort of seeing what goes on as the party handled this business behind the scenes. And then I'm also, someone who cares about just the things that are happening in our country right now. I think they're very serious. And yeah, I'm concerned. So here we are. Let's go.
Duke's endorsement of Jill Stein is actually a great place to start because while unexpected on its
Hey,
face,
Vic.
his reasoning is telling. Jill Stein has rebuked the endorsement and is not affiliated with the KKK, just so we're clear. But David Duke made clear that he is supporting her for the same reason that many people on the far left are endorsing her, because of her stance on the Middle East. I know, but let's hear him out. He said, "Although Dr. Stein and I obviously have our differences on important issues, she's the only candidate who speaks clearly against the war in the Middle East." Also noting that his decision was based on what is good for white people, Europeans, as well as all humanity. He's also said that Jewish supremacy on a global level that's causing these genocides and these wars and this destruction of our economy, our morals, our society, the very essence of what we call Western civilization, is the greatest threat to us and the greatest threat to all mankind. He is one of the many people who is using this election and the genocide in Gaza to promote his own twisted, bigoted, despicable worldview.
Minor correction too. Like, this David Duke thing is very interesting, but I also think this is also just not very accurate. I really think Kamala Harris, on some of her largest platforms and some of her biggest moments throughout her campaign, has been very clear that she supports a ceasefire and wants to see an end to the conflict. To be honest, Donald Trump also wants to see an end to the conflict. He just thinks that end should come by us giving Israel the resources to do whatever it wants to wipe Gazans off the fucking map. But I just think, people who have this thing in their head where the third party people, they're the only ones who are brave enough to actually speak out against the conflict. I just don't think that that's factually accurate.
And I think it's a good, though extreme, illustration of how Jill Stein, as a far-left third-party candidate, is being used as a pawn by people across the political spectrum to create leverage in an electoral system where only two parties have an actual shot at winning. I've made episodes about this already.
Oh,
and
interesting,
later we'll get
Vic.
into why our system is so
I didn't know you were in the micro.
But this idea of Jill Stein as leverage is a good way to set the stage of our discussion about her. Jill Stein will not win the presidency.
Okay, now
she never could,
other thing
and under our
that let's pause the tape. This is not just about Jill Stein. Jill Stein is a very particular case that we're going to look at because it's emblematic of what's going on in our political atmosphere. But be very clear, to me, this is really a conversation about anyone who is entertaining the idea of voting third party, and even to a lesser extent, people who are virtue signaling by saying they're going to stay home or stay out of it. This is basically to anybody who is not voting for Kamala Harris. That's who my subject is. I just think Jill Stein is a great example, and I think Lija's video does a great job of highlighting the problems I have with the current third-party movements on the left in general.
Current system, she never will. I don't think anyone with a general understanding of our electoral system, whether they're voting for her or not, thinks that she'll win.
All right, so that's the first thing to just get out there. There is no such thing as a third party in this country that can actually win an election, particularly not a presidential election. Local elections, maybe. Still a very tough road to hoe. Most of us don't have third party candidates that are even options locally. And that is where I think we need to start and put most of our efforts. But let's be very clear, whether we're talking about Jill Stein and the Green Party, whether we're talking about the socialist parties, whether we're talking about the labor parties, whether we're talking about whatever the fuck Cenk Uygur thinks he was doing, none of these tickets or candidates can win. And at best, they're all trying to do some sort of strategic messaging, and we need to get real and honest about whether or not that is actually an effective strategy.
So the only purpose Jill Stein serves for many of the people promoting or denigrating her is as a pawn for the larger race. And yes, third-party candidates can move the needle on the national discussion and bring important issues to the forefront to get them on the platforms of the major parties, but that needs to be happening on the local level, not in a presidential race with an entrenched two-party system and an outdated electoral college system.
And this is there's a really good point to that, and it's not just a matter of preference. It's really a matter of strategy. You have to understand that the presidential elections that we have every 4 years are incredibly high stakes. They are incredibly expensive. There are literally billions and billions of dollars poured into them. And the conversation is happening at an incredibly massive scale. It is about literally getting the majority of, 300 million plus people or whatever it is to vote for you. And so the particular issues that we would love to see as leftists, they don't really have a chance of being well received in these presidential elections. They have a much better chance of being built from the bottom up by being active and engaged in local organizing in between election years. But as we'll see, that is largely the big problem with third parties in this country. As much as they rail against the two-party system and the limits of our electoral landscape and the fact that they don't allow third parties to have a legit shot, all these third parties seem to do is show up every 4 years, tell us to vote differently, and then they disappear until another presidential election. In other words, they don't seem to be very interested in actually doing the organizing necessary to actually give us a chance at being able to move the needle on issues and actually have third-party candidates who have a chance in local elections. They don't seem interested in school board elections. They don't seem interested in city council elections. They don't seem interested in mayor races. They don't seem interested in getting county commissioners elected locally. They're like, the problem is the two-party system and the focus on electoral politics, but then why are you so focused on the two-party system and electoral politics every 4 years? It's really a glaring deficiency.
Just that I needed all of these caveats because Jill Stein is such a flashpoint right now and has been in every election she's ran in, which was 2012, 2016, and now 2024 for the record. But the reality is that Jill Stein, for many of the people screaming about her, is being used for strategic purposes. David Duke is endorsing her because, at least based on what he said, he thinks the war in the Middle East threatens Europeans and white people, and he abhors Jews and what he calls Jewish supremacy, which reeks of bigotry and conspiracy theories and should be fully rejected at every instance, which makes sense given his background, though. So anyone who comes out against Israel may be an attractive candidate to him, given how few US politicians are willing to denounce Israel or hold the country accountable for any of its actions. But Jill Stein is also a strategic pawn for the Republicans as well. Notably, lawyers and operatives with ties to the Republicans and to Trump have helped ensure that Jill Stein and Cornel West appear on ballots in key swing states. In Arizona in August, a group of Republican-affiliated lawyers scrambled to rescue an effort to get Cornel West on the ballot after he failed to file paperwork on time. They also worked on getting West on the ballot in Wisconsin, Virginia, North Carolina, Nebraska, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Maine. Similarly, Trump allies and others affiliated with the GOP have been working to support Jill Stein and her initiatives to secure ballot access. She has been represented by multiple Trump-affiliated lawyers in her efforts to get on the ballot in key states, including Nevada and Wisconsin. And Stein's campaign paid $100,000 to a consulting firm called Accelerate, which has worked with Republicans on signature gathering services. The head of the consulting firm, Trent Poole, allegedly participated in the January 6th attack, though his people claim he was just there filming a documentary.
All right. Now, people have to understand that this is a nasty game, but if you want to understand what the real impact of the third party is going to be and what their potential is, look at how your opponents treat them, right? The same thing where people heard in 2022, what the fuck is this I heard? Did I just hear that the Democrats were spending money to put money behind MAGA candidates? Like, yeah. So what the Democrats did, they figured out that general elections were really, really expensive. And so you have to spend a ton of money in a general election if you have a really good, strong candidate from the other party. So what they did was put money into ads that propped up crazy MAGA loony Trumpists, hoping that those Trumpists would win the primary against more moderate Republicans, therefore weakening the Republican ticket and saving the Democrats money and strife going into the general election. So you actually have Democrats who support MAGA because MAGA is easier to beat, right? And so that tells you just how bad MAGA really kind of is for the Republican Party. Democrats are like, go MAGA because you guys suck, right? And this is sort of the inverse of that. It's MAGA going, yeah, you know what? We actually really want Cornel West on as many ballots as possible. We actually want Jill Stein on as many ballots as possible. Why? Because they know that that is going to pull votes from the left. So that should be your first red flag right there. Wait, I'm trying to do something because I'm such a diehard pure lefty that I just think I can't even stomach voting for a Democrat. But now instead, I'm either going to protest vote or vote for or stay home or vote for one of these third party candidates who actually has MAGA funding behind them just because they know how good it would be for them to pull my vote away from the Democrats. Yeah, when Donald Trump thinks that when you're not voting for Donald Trump, but the Trumpists love who you're voting for and they think it's a really good idea and they're willing to spend money that they could put behind Donald Trump and instead put that money behind the third party candidate that you're going to vote for, you done fucked up. You done fucked up.
For Republicans, Jill Stein represents a real opportunity to throw the election in Trump's favor by siphoning off leftist voters. And you know that this is true because Democrats this week have launched attack ads against Jill Stein, warning that a vote for her is a vote for Trump. Democrats know that she poses a very real threat of taking away otherwise Democratic voters.
Vic, hit me up sometime. I don't wanna have a full interview right now about your education and stuff. But hit me up on Discord or something. I'd love to chat about research, see where you're at, and just see if there's anything I can do to help you get back into a lab.
And Republicans know it too, so they're leaning in. As we've talked about before on this channel, Trump and his allies know that he probably can't win the popular vote, and they're not even sure that he could win the Electoral College either. That's why they're doing everything in their power to find other means to ensure he wins, from placing election-denying election officials
No, it's all good, Vic,
to helping Jill Stein get on the ballot in those same states. Though a judge in Georgia just blocked the Georgia State Election Board's absurd rules about hand-counting ballots and allowing election officials to deny election certification. So that's some great news out of Georgia for voting rights. And this is why Trump's cronies have to have a multi-layered approach.
Anytime.
Maybe they were thwarted in Georgia this time, but they have election deniers posted up all over the country, and they're betting that a large swath of leftists will vote for Jill Stein. And many of them will be motivated to do so because of the genocide in Gaza. And listen, two things can be true at the same time. David Duke's motivations for endorsing Jill Stein and denouncing Israel are undergirded by anti-Semitism, bigotry, and hate. Those on the left are motivated to denounce Israel not because of any hatred of Judaism, but because of a rejection of genocide and of the existence of any apartheid regime, which Israel is, period.
All right, now let me be clear about something else. If you oppose this genocide, you are correct. I too oppose the genocide. It's really important that we think about. I must have a neighbor like vacuuming or something. Yeah, that's really not helpful. But all right, like the thing is, this is. Hang on, I lost my train of thought. We're going.
These two sides are coalescing.
Oh yeah, you're right about the genocide. You're right. But the thing is, now you've got to do what it takes to try to end the damn thing. It makes no sense to be right about the genocide, take a moral stance, but then actually do something in that voting booth that is going to have the exact opposite effect. Please understand that one of two people is going to be the next president of this country. It is either going to be Kamala Harris or it is going to be Donald Trump. So can you honestly sleep good at night thinking I didn't vote for Kamala and then Trump wins? Do you think that is going to help people in the Middle East? I don't understand.
The same, and I am in no way insinuating that they are, okay? Great. Again, this is about strategy at the end of the day. For those on the far left who have joined the Abandon Harris campaign or are backing Jill Stein, former Seattle City Council member Kshama Sawant summed it up well last week in her speech in support of Jill Stein. She identified taking Michigan from Harris in the election as a top goal, pointing out that polling shows that it's unlikely Harris could win the presidency without Michigan. Michigan is also home to a large Arab population, and Trump won the state by a razor-thin margin in 2016. Sawant stated that if we manage to accomplish taking Michigan from Harris, and I quote, "it would be absolutely historic by voting for a presidential candidate who is against the war and by rejecting a presidential candidate because she is supporting a genocide."
All right. Now, I just think this is crazy talk, right? First off, the idea that they might be right. They might be right. You could very well hurt Kamala in Michigan. And yeah, there's a really good chance that she loses Michigan, she loses the election. Y'all think that would be a victory? Y'all think that's a top goal? I hate to say this, when you hear shit like this, it makes me not even have support for third parties. It makes me think third parties got their heads shoved so far up their fucking ass, they don't care what happens to the rest of us. This shit is not cute. It's not funny. It ain't nothing to fucking play with. I don't give a fuck if Jill Stein opposes the goddamn genocide. She can't do shit to stop it. She cannot do a goddamn thing about it. Nothing. Except this. She can interfere, cost Kamala Michigan, cost Kamala the election, and then the people who voted for Jill Stein can pat themselves on the back because they showed how serious they were against the genocide. And then the result is going to be Trump handing over more US dollars, more US weaponry, and fuck it, he might even throw in some US troops to escalate the damn genocide. Like I said, Trump wants the genocide to be over too. It's just his solution is the final solution, and he's wondering what's taking Bibi Netanyahu so goddamn long to enact it. So that's what you're gonna get us. And everybody decided to do yard work today, huh?
And a significant share of Muslim voters in Michigan are considering a vote for Jill Stein. Sawant and others have been clear that Jill Stein will not win the presidency. But a vote for her and not for Harris is meant to punish Kamala Harris and defeat her. Again, Jill Stein is leverage. A vote for her is a threat to Democrats and a protest of the ongoing genocide in Gaza, but also part of a long protest against a two-party system that is bought and paid for by corporate interests who profit off war and poverty. As Sawant recently put it, every vote for our campaign is a shot across the bow of the empire. Sawant has been active in rallying against the two-party system for years, showing up at the DNC to protest against Hillary Clinton in 2016 and then protesting against Trump after his victory that year. The organization Socialist Alternative has also endorsed Jill Stein, saying in a recent post, Marxists fight for the independent interests of the working class. The reality is that neither Trump or Harris represent working people. They represent the billionaires and the capitalist system, which breeds war, climate disaster, and suffering for billions around the world. Socialist Alternative has endorsed Jill Stein in this presidential election because working people desperately need a political party in the US that represents us. We'll never get there by voting for Democrats or Republicans every 4 years. We think every vote for a left, independent, anti-war candidate like Jill Stein is a refusal to remain confined within the failed two-party system. It's a demand for something new. But in the very same post, Socialist Alternative identified what for many people is one of the most damning things about a vote for Jill Stein, saying, while endorsing Jill Stein, we don't think that the Green Party is the working class party we need. The Greens are largely absent from politics until the presidential elections come around, and they don't participate meaningfully in social struggle or the labor movement to fight for real gains for the working class. And that's true, and a major criticism of Jill Stein herself. After losing her last presidential bid, between 2016 and 2023, Jill Stein did, well, it's unclear. Her website provides no insight. Ballotpedia is silent. So is her Wikipedia article, but Wikipedia is not a valid source. So I thought surely there will be news reporting on her activity from 2017 to 2023. So I searched for that. And all I found was that reports found Russia launched a pro-Jill Stein media blitz to help Trump win in 2016. She had a number of fines she failed to pay for failure to submit financial disclosures. And she was involved in the Senate Intelligence Committee's investigation into possible Russian collusion. In 2021, the FEC ordered her to pay $175,000 in fines after she was found to have used taxpayer dollars to fund her campaign long after she was eligible to do so. And that's about it. I scrolled back through hundreds of Instagram posts and found that her Instagram fell silent after a final post on February 6th, 2017, only to be revived 6.5 years later to announce her 2024 run for president. So
Hey, y'all, this is the incredibly damning shit that I'm talking about with all the third parties. Where are these people at in between elections? Where are they? You don't hear nothing from any of them between elections, ever. And that is incredibly damning. Yo, bro,
It's
you gotta
unclear
stop.
what Stein does when she's not running for president. And as we'll talk about, that does not bode well for this movement she claims to be building. Socialist Alternative provides justification for endorsing her anyway, writing, Stein is the strongest independent left candidate running right now, and millions of votes for her. Ordinary people in the US, Democrats and Republicans. If built on, a strong third-party vote could be an important step toward a new party. Basically, voting for Jill Stein in their minds is part of a larger strategy towards greater rights and power for workers. That strategy includes organizing outside of the 4-year election cycle. And that's good and important because that's where the real work happens, but it's hard not to see the glaring contradictions in their own post about voting for Jill Stein. She's not perfect, neither is the Green Party, but voting for Stein is a demand for something new, but also because of the two-party system and the Electoral College, a third-party candidate will never win, and just voting every 4 years isn't enough. And they go on to denounce Sawant's statements I mentioned earlier in favor of defeating Harris, saying, Trump winning is not punishment for the Democrats. It's punishment for millions of working and oppressed people in the US and around the world. We are strong opponents of the Democrats, but it is genuinely shocking to hear that Sawant thinks it would be a historic victory for Kamala Harris to lose this election to Trump. Baby girl, what do you think is going to happen if people do what you're telling them to do and vote for Jill Stein instead of Harris? And I get that this is nuanced and that existing outside the two-party system requires us to think critically and theoretically, to exist in difficult gray areas, and that theoretical work is important to imagining new futures. But politics, the act of politicking, whether it's socialist, fascist, or whatever the we have going on in the US right now, is, in the end, a game of strategy. Theory is only as good as humans are actually capable of implementing it. And so far, we've proven to be very bad at that. So while theory has its place in discussions and movements and alternative world building, when it comes to voting every 4 years, it really comes down to strategy in the end, because that's what politics is. We should not be idolizing our politicians or expecting them to be virtuous or create real lasting change of their own accord. We should be treating them for what they are. Our employees who work for us, who history has shown us tend to be meddling and lazy and self-serving, and who must be handheld and pushed to do our actual bidding, what we the people want. Because politics is dirty work, and they are ultimately playing a game of strategy. And I don't say this to be a cynical naysayer. I say this because once we understand the actual purpose of politicians and what our relationship to them should be, it makes our job and our role a lot clearer. And that's why Jill Stein is nothing more than a strategic pawn. And okay, fine, if endorsing her is part of your strategy to exist outside the two-party electoral system in protest, say that with your whole chest. But know that it's a losing strategy. It has never worked. People have been calling for the abolition of the Electoral College since Andrew Jackson in 1828. Over the past 200 years, more than 700 proposals have been introduced in Congress to reform or eliminate the Electoral College, and none have become law. Third-party candidates running as a punishment for the Democrats to really teach them a lesson and change the system have never taught Democrats a lesson or changed the system. Democrats continue to be shills for the billionaires who buy them out while giving lip service to mildly left-leaning ideals but not really changing anything. And then when they lose, due in part to losing votes because of a protest third-party candidate, the Republicans win instead, and exactly the opposite of what we all want happens. Imagine if Ralph Nader hadn't run in 2000 and Gore had won. Gore, the climate activist. Just pause and imagine. And no, Ralph Nader's run in 2000 isn't the only reason Gore lost. Many Democrats decided to vote Republican that year. The Supreme Court ultimately made the decision. Voter suppression has always been alive and well. There are many things that go into whether a candidate wins or loses. But the reality is that despite all of those other things, if Nader hadn't pulled hundreds of thousands of votes from Gore, Gore likely would have been president in 2000. And despite the voter suppression and other shit we still deal with every election year, if Stein hadn't run in 2016, Clinton may have won that year too. And yet, despite both losses, we have continued down the path of money influencing our politics, of Democrats and Republicans alike blindly backing a genocide. The Democrats didn't learn from those defeats. This is not how we make change happen. You do not get to show up once every 4 years and decide now's my time to take a stand. Girl, that work happens on the off years. It happens at the local level. It happens through organizing when no one is looking. So if you're not also pushing for electoral college reform, ranked choice voting, and campaign finance reform in your spare time outside of presidential election years, your protest vote for Jill Stein is performative at best. And
again, like, this is another. So there's been a bunch of cool points here. Sorry, my landlord is blowing leaves outside, so just had to deal with some noise. But there's a few things. So one is the fact that they only show up every 4 years. That's incredibly damning. Two is the fact that they don't really seem interested in these larger reforms. They don't seem really interested in doing the work of organizing to get money out of politics. They don't really seem interested in doing the work of pushing for alternative voting systems or even trying to get rid of the electoral college. It's like they just show up every 4 years and decide to make a statement by sabotaging one of the two parties. And unfortunately, it doesn't ever seem to work out in the favor of those that are actually, left leaning and caring about democracy or having a small L liberal nation. The other thing that bothers me is, and this is going to get a little bit hairy here, y'all, but it's the way this shit interacts with privilege. It's the way that most of these people who insist on voting third party, abstaining, protest voting, they tend to be largely white, largely male, largely educated, largely upper middle class. And again, they're in what I call the safe zone. They're in the zone where, yes, they may prefer this policy or that policy, but overall, they know that they're going to be okay, or they suspect that they're going to be okay either way. That shit pisses me off. It really pisses me off because, again, it's like people who don't have to worry about the things that most people have to worry about, telling those people to put their needs, their material conditions, the impact on their real lives aside so they can make a virtue signal based on somebody else in America, usually, again, a white man, educated, liberal person, who then wants that person to put the needs of Palestinians over the person they're talking to. Like, literally telling me to protest Kamala is telling me that Palestinian lives, which I think are really important, and I'm absolutely against genocide, but I'm not going to put the needs of Palestinians before the needs of Americans. And even if you were going to put the needs of Palestinians before the needs of Americans, the right thing to do would be to vote for Kamala Harris. And this is what I mean when I say the far left actually supports MAGA. Because they look at the candidate who actually says, I support a ceasefire, and say, fuck you, that's not enough. So then the guy who doesn't even care about a ceasefire, he's good to go. Kamala says, I support a two-state solution. Now, we could talk all day long about whether a two-state solution is better or whether it's going to work or whatever the fuck, but that is at least what most people nationally, internationally, think is a amicable solution. Again, we could talk about the limits of it or whether we need to do something different. But again, that is a far better take than, oh, I just think Israel has the right to fuck them all the way up with no consequences. That seems to be what these other people want us to do. That really bothers me. The other thing that pisses me off about it is it doesn't take seriously the struggle for suffrage. You know what I'm saying, y'all? Like, if you a white man, cool. You always had your rights in this country. Everybody else had to fight for their shit, and then it had to be written in after the fact. Women, people of color, there's something that just doesn't feel right about somebody looking me in the face as a black man and telling me to play a fucking game with my vote. You understand what I'm saying to y'all? Like, you know what it really, really was? The real history of enfranchising black people, right? It includes war, slavery, Reconstruction, protest out the wazoo. And even now, right now, today, the Republican Party is on a constant offensive to marginalize my vote. Right now, today, as a black man in America. So what? So let me get this right. You have a candidate that actually said, I support the ceasefire. But since she's the vice president now, by the way, in no position that in any way, shape, or form can she even affect the ceasefire right now. But she says, if I get the reins of this thing, I'm gonna support a ceasefire. So she tells you that. Other candidate tells you flat out, I'm pro-Israel. Just wipe it out and build shopping malls for Israelis. I don't know what seems to be the problem. But since she didn't go far enough, which by the way, far enough would sink her chances. That's what they really want. They want her to be so leftist pure that she just goes off, that they want her to curse out all the Jewish citizens, curse out all the right? Like they want her to literally sabotage her campaign at the altar of their purity. Then they'll say she's good enough to vote for, but then she can't win. She has chosen the right path. Win, get in, and they'll do what he's going to do. But now you'll turn to people of color, poor people, women, LGBTQ people who are going to be all the way fucked up if Trump wins. And tell us, nah, that's not the most important thing anymore. Nah, you got to be so concerned about Israelis. And we're like, we are. That's why we're going to vote for the candidate who wants a ceasefire. Nah, that ain't enough. Y'all see what I'm saying? Like they really playing with our votes. You understand? Like, and they not really like, I'm a black man in America. My vote was very hard to get. And it means a lot. It's not a fucking joke. The other thing is like, you just can't do that. And the other thing that I don't like is they play this game where it's cute to be third party where it doesn't matter. Right? Like, oh, you're in California, it's going to go to the Democrats, so you can vote third party. Oh, you live in New Jersey, that's going to go blue, you could vote for the third party. Oh, you live in fucking Maine, it's going to go blue, you could vote for the third party. Oh, you live in Wisconsin, oh, it's a swing state, well, don't do it there. It's like you create a situation where it really feels like it is the Democratic Party that's fighting for our rights. It is the Democratic Party that's keeping us away from fascism. And then the third party people come along and say, well, the Democrats are doing the real work. The Democrats are really the ones warding off fascism. But now they're so strong, we can come behind them and just siphon off a few votes in states where we can't cost them the election. Like you're already, you're coming from such a position of weakness. You're literally coming from a position of asking people to make protest statements, but then to do it only and strategically in states where it isn't going to matter. Ugh.
It's a losing strategy. The Russians know it, the Republicans know it, the Democrats know it, and so do major leftist organizers who you so idolize. Bernie Sanders has endorsed Kamala Harris. AOC has endorsed Kamala Harris. Angela Davis has endorsed Kamala Harris. The Uncommitted movement, who a lot of us voted to support by voting uncommitted in the primaries, myself included, has endorsed Kamala Harris. At a rally in Paris last month, Angela Davis said, it's not just about electing Kamala Harris. It's about opening space for those of us who are more radical than Kamala Harris to put anti-capitalist and anti-racist programs forward and increase the pressure for change, especially in the first place when it comes to the genocide being inflicted on the people of Palestine. Because the reality is this. Kamala Harris does not stand for my progressive ideals. She says things that I actively disagree with, but most voters in the United States aren't progressives. So it is not realistic to expect a presidential candidate to represent perfect progressive leftist ideology. That is an unelectable candidate in a country with 330 million people we all have to live with together. It's not going to happen. Demanding it is a complete waste of time. But having a Democrat in office becomes a tool for greater progress. Because if Trump is in office again, our screaming into the abyss will feel so much more useless.
All right. Now, I think this is something that can easily misheard, because we did have a conversation about this in Gather last night, I believe. I think when she says Kamala Harris becomes a tool for greater promise, she is not promising, that Kamala Harris becomes a tool for greater progress. She is not promising that Kamala Harris is a progressive. She is not saying Kamala Harris is going to get in office and all of a sudden she's going to give us a liberal commie paradise and it's going to be down with capitalism. Like, she's not saying that. What she's saying, quite frankly, is in Kamala Harris's world, people to the left of Kamala Harris have a seat at the table. This is always how it's worked. Matter of fact, Kamala Harris, it's a big deal that Kamala Harris was Joe Biden's pick. People don't remember this, but when Kamala Harris ran in the primary, she ran to the left of Joe Biden. If you look at most of her meaningful policies, yes, she's changed her mind on some things like fracking, and people on the left are not crazy about her border policies and stuff like that. But on most of the issues people care about, like Gaza, she is clearly to the left of Joe Biden. And that is how progress is made. It's not a promise. It's not a guarantee. We're grown folks. It's not how the game works. But you at least have a seat at the table. You're at least in the room. With Trump, y'all already know what the game is.
We will simply join the cacophony of voices screaming while the people in power around him dismantle this country and undo the decades of what little progressive progress we've made. But criticizing a Democrat president from the left is far more powerful. It's harder to write it off as just another person on the left screaming out about a Republican. Instead, it will be far more effective to have strong voices saying, hey, I voted for you and I expect better. Organizing for change that might actually happen because we won't be contending about just the basics. Under Kamala, we can say, hey, fracking actually isn't the way forward. Let's push for better environmental protections and investment in green energy. Whereas under Trump, the conversation will be, hey, let's not completely dismantle the EPA. I don't give a shit about your theory when that will be our reality. You know what I mean? And if 4 years from now, you want the option of actually potentially electing a third-party candidate, if not for president, then at least to represent you in Congress, that is a change that we push for outside of the presidential election. Abolishing the Electoral College would likely require a constitutional amendment, which is a huge lift, but the way that states choose the electors to represent them within the Electoral College can be changed much more easily.
Chris, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, like, I honestly think that it's not that mysterious. I think the same the same attitudes and way people are that permits God belief to be so prominent in people's lives and so dominant, despite the fact that it's so clearly not true, evidently not true. I mean, I have a really hard time even like taking the conversation seriously because I just think until the country gets serious about the truth and gets serious about shutting down things that are clearly not true from public discourse, I don't think you can pick and choose which crazy you allow. And so I think we allow people to ignore the truth, ignore the evidence, ignore the truth, ignore the evidence, ignore the truth, ignore the evidence because they got to live their truth and do what was important to them and all that. And then Trump just took advantage of that. Trump just really saw, okay, this is how it gets down in America. If you plead the blood of Jesus, people can't do anything. You could, if you plead the blood of Jesus, you can really sort of amplify the worst instincts in Americans amongst the worst people. But the people who typically fight back about it, they can't do it, right? If you come straight out with racism, well, people could fight back about that, especially like people of color. When you come straight out as hating LGBTQ people, we could fight back against that. When you come out straight for corporate greed, we could fight back against that. When you do all of those same things, but you wrap it in a cross, all of a sudden everybody's like, well, I don't know what to say. Well, Jesus is my Lord too. Well, we might have different interpretation. Like it's just a whole game. And I'm just tired of playing it. You know what I mean?
This isn't just a pipe dream. The United States genuinely could move towards a proportional representation model. Many states and local elections already are doing just that. According to the Pew Research Center, 261 jurisdictions in the U.S., ranging from the state of California to the Yoakum, Texas Independent School District, have adopted some voting method other than the standard single winner plurality system most American voters know. The most common alternative voting system is ranked choice voting, where voters rank candidates by preference, and then if no candidate gets a majority, rankings are used to reallocate the loser's votes until one candidate does get the majority. Maine is the only state that currently uses alternative voting extensively after a 2018 voter-passed initiative approved widespread use of ranked choice voting.
And it's so interesting too. Like, okay, first off, shout out to Stephanie. Steph loves to brag on her state of Maine, and they are exemplary in the sense of putting the rubber to the road and actually approving and using an alternative voting system. Another quick side note is I'm a fan of star voting. Star stands for score, then automatic runoff. It's a little bit, I like it in the sense of you score the candidates, and so you don't just get to say who you approve of, you get to like rank them. Okay, and then it's sort of similar. So score, then automatic runoff means like they do this, you do the scores of all your candidates, and then they like I guess they figure out who the top two are, and then it's an automatic runoff. So then between the top two, they go back through everybody, and your vote counts for the person you picked higher. But look, I want y'all to look into it. It's a good system. Let me I'm gonna put a link in here to star voting so people could check this out. They could check out starvoting.org. But yeah, there are alternatives. Ranked choice is good. I think star is actually a little bit better than ranked choice. The other point I wanted to make is you can do it. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's trivial, but Maine shows that you can do it. You can create the organization to get a petition going, to get a ballot initiative on the ballot in your state. If you get enough signatures, it will become a ballot initiative. And if you organize and have a good campaign, you can actually get something like that passed. So it is doable. It is a path. And yeah, it might sound hard, but it's doable. Thinking we're going to win the presidency of the United States as a third party or independent and then change things, that's not an actual real path forward. I will tell you something that's probably going to surprise a lot of you about growing up in politics. I actually have tremendous respect for most politicians. I know the blase and the fucking Glavinoids. What most of you experience is what I call politicians on TV. First off, when you think of a politician, you're thinking of a certain level. You're thinking of a US person in the House of Representatives. You're thinking of a senator. You're thinking of a president, the vice president. A lot of times you're thinking of the mayor. You're thinking of the governor. Okay. These are top of the food chain positions. These are some of literally the most powerful people in the country and the most powerful people in the world. And it's become almost part of our social psyche as a country to malign them. They're all corrupt, they're all lazy, they're all stupid, you know, and that distorts your perspective of who politicians actually are. When you come up like I did in local politics, most of the politicians you know are local politicians. They're on the school board, they're city council people. Yes, some of them are mayors or state senators. And I know people, you know, sort of up and down the food chain, but when you're in that world, most of the people you know are going to be in those other positions because that's what most politicians do. Most politicians aren't the mayor. Most politicians aren't the president. Of all the politicians in your whole state, only 2 of them are senators. There are probably thousands of city council people in your state, right? Because there's hundreds of cities. Most politicians are smart, incredibly hardworking, underpaid, understaffed, overworked, and incredibly responsible citizens. They're good family people, they're good community people, they're good to their alma maters, they're good to their families, they're like exemplary citizens. Most politicians, if you really know real politicians, you will admire and respect these people, even ones on the other side of the aisle. Because you know what it's really about. You realize that about. You realize immediately they're all very talented. They could all be if they really were as greedy as you thought they were, they wouldn't be politicians. If they was really as greedy as you thought they were, they take their skills, their set, and their connections, and they'd be making buku money. But instead, they actually really care. And that's why they do what they do. And I really wish most people had that perspective. And the only thing I can tell you is like get involved. Like the only way to really change is like get involved. Get involved locally, and you'll meet more local politicians, and it'll change your perspective. So I really think like that needs to be thought of. And we had the same thing right now with Kamala and Trump. You can say what you want about Kamala. She's the normal, regular politician, a career politician, dedicated her career to public service. You may not like all her policies, may not like everything she's ever done, but she is genuinely, truly a public servant. Trump hates public servants, makes fun of them, has no experience, is a criminal. I mean, the choice is very clear, y'all.
Used in Maine for primary and general elections for U.S. senators, representatives, and the president, as well as for primaries for governor and state legislators. Minneapolis, where I live, also uses ranked choice voting. So change towards alternative voting systems that disfavor an entrenched two-party system is happening at the local level. States could choose to independently adopt alternative voting systems so that eventually we're all voting in a patchwork of ways that collectively move us away from a two-party system. Or Congress could take up the fight and pass a national law that changes how elections happen uniformly nationwide. It wouldn't take a constitutional amendment. The Constitution leaves states to decide their own rules, but also reserves to Congress the power to intervene. And Congress has used this power repeatedly over the years to enforce.
I mean, TJ, I'm trying to encourage people to not do that, but it's a country. You can do what you want to do. I think people who vote for Jill Stein are literally hoping their votes don't count. And that's kind of what I was getting at earlier, is as a Black man, the history of this country is my vote means too much to me and too much to the history of this country for me to not take my vote seriously. But yeah, I think most people who vote these third-party candidates, you're hoping the rest of us carry it for you. That's the words I was looking for that I couldn't find earlier. You're hoping the rest of us carry it for you. You're voting for Jill Stein, but you're secretly hoping enough of us vote for Kamala Harris that you get to pat yourself on the back for voting for Jill Stein, but then you don't have to deal with the Trump administration. That's just my take on it.
Very winner-takes-all single-member districts that keep the two-party system in place and ensure that most elections are uncompetitive. Of course, a federal law would require a level of consensus in Congress that's unlikely unless we get some people voting Democratic.
No, we're not saying you have to deal with the duopoly. You have to get off your ass between election years and, yes, do something different. You have to actually organize so that we can create the changes we need so that we get alternatives. But right now, this is the thing. We're in a toss-up election. So the only people who can play this game are people who think they're in states that are so decided one way or the other that their votes don't matter. The people that are playing this fucking game in swing states are literally taking a razor wire to the rest of our necks. So it's just not a game to play right now. She's not winning. And beyond that, she doesn't even care. Like, what is, I think TJ probably joined us late, but TJ, if you go back, the biggest indictment about Jill Stein is what does she do in between election years? Nothing.
Way down the ticket in every single state, which we should be doing. Okay, please vote. Especially given the fact that the very entrenched politicians who benefit from the two-party winner-takes-all system are the ones who would have to make the change happen. And they are currently bought out by billionaires who benefit from our polarization and infighting, and who would be threatened by outsiders and progressive candidates that would start gaining more traction if we moved away from a winner-takes-all system. So this probably has to happen at a local level. FairVoteAction.org is a nonprofit organization pushing for these types of reforms at the local and federal level. They provide resources for pushing for local proportional voting reform, and they have worked on pushing national legislation like the Fair Representation Act, which would create multi-member districts and ranked choice voting in the House of Representatives. The bill was last introduced in June 2021 and died in committee. Classic. Go to fairvoteaction.org to learn about their work and how you can get involved to make change happen where you live, like real actual change. Voting Jill Stein will not make the change that you think it will, but there are people organizing to actually make change happen, and that is the work we should all be doing long after November has come and gone. So vote Kamala Harris like your future depends on it, because it does. And no, I was not paid by the Democrats to say that. Special thanks to members on Patreon who support this podcast. If you want ad-free, uncensored access to all these episodes.
All right, y'all. That is feature number 1. Yeah, let me just reiterate my main things. First off, can't win. Just can't win. Not even possible. Not even going to entertain that conversation, and people know that. But my other concerns are we can't. First of all, we just can't play right now. You're playing Russian roulette essentially with your vote here, and the threat that Trump has proposed to our system of justice, our system of democracy, and as far as I'm concerned, to me personally and the people I love, it's just really not a game. The other thing is there's a lot of privilege. Most of the far left people I see, the super progressive ones that are all like, oh, we're too hardcore to vote for the Democrats or the Republicans, they're white, they're educated, college educated, they're usually middle class. To me, they're playing games with other people's lives. They are at a place in the system where their material conditions will not change that much if Trump is in office versus Harris. And so they're fine rolling the dice with the rest of our lives. If you're actually a minority, you're actually LGBTQ, that is not a game we can afford to play. And so I don't appreciate the fact that those people are putting their leftist purity above the real lived experience of marginalized people. I also think they're, like I said, they're kind of trivializing the importance of suffrage. If you're Black, if you're a woman, if you're poor, our rights had to be written in later. They had to be fought for, and people had to die for us to get the right to vote. And this idea that when we have a meaningful choice about our material conditions, a very meaningful choice, that we should not utilize our vote for what it was intended, which is to improve our material conditions, and instead, we should let liberal white elites convince us to throw away our vote to make a statement. Now, the only statement you're making is you don't give a shit about the real cost to marginalized people of another Trump administration. That's the statement you're making. The other thing is, I think a bunch of them are punk asses because they're nowhere to be found in the 4 years between presidential elections. They have no energy to organize locally. They have no energy to organize local campaigns. They have no energy to walk the streets and knock on their neighbors' doors or phone bank. They have no energy for actually doing a petition that could change the voting system and then organizing to get that petition signed. This is what real organizers do. Matter of fact, that's a huge part of what the parties do. You talk about what the parties really do. That's a huge part of what parties do. Is if you come up with a petition or something that's good and you bring it to your local Democratic Party and go, oh, this is pretty good. Yeah, we're done. We're a political party. Yeah, we've got money to help people get petitions on ballots. Oh, you got a good ballot idea? Yeah, we got some money for that. We can get that on billboards. We can get it in the paper. We can get, right. So here's really another thing I'm getting at. Look at what they did in France. What did they have to do? Very contentious election. It was going to go hard right, go hard left, but the left was fractured in all these different parties. What did they do? They came together. They built a coalition of leftist parties. They sat aside all the fringe bullshit. They said, which leftist candidate has the best chance of winning? Okay, cool. Now we're going to all get together and coalesce behind that person. And then when they get in, then we're going to make moves and do what we got to do. That's exactly what we should be doing here. So if these third parties and independents on the left were really serious about winning and being effective, that's what they would be doing. They'll recognize that now we need a coalition. We need the Labor Party to shut the fuck up. Y'all not going to win. Green Party, shut the fuck up. You're not going to win. Socialist Party, shut the fuck up. Y'all not going to win. Libertarian, shut the fuck up. You're not going to win. Let's all get to this coalition so we keep the orange Mussolini out of office. Okay? And then we can start splitting hairs. What you have instead is these leftists are getting together deliberately to punish the Democrats. The Democrats are the ones on your side. But you're punishing them for not being on side enough. That's crazy. You're actually supporting Trump. And the funny thing is, some of them, when they're honest, they will tell you. like Jill Stein did. Yeah, our main goal is to stop Kamala from winning Detroit. Get the fuck over there, kitty table. You're done. I will never support anything Jill Stein ever does so long as I live. Promise you. Promise you. Promise you. Hey, Jill Stein, we got the chance to elect the first Black woman president of this country. She also supports a ceasefire. And your dumb white ass is going to try to cost her Michigan. And then Gaza's going to get all the way fucked up when Donald Trump gets back in office. Bitch, we will never forgive you. Ever. Don't even ask. Don't even think about it. There will be no redemption. You think Black Americans are okay with white people telling Michiganders not to vote for Kamala Harris? Are you fucking stupid? You need to wake up and grow up. All right, y'all, I told y'all, for the first time in a long time, we have a double feature. And it's a perfect double feature because these independents and people that want to vote third party, well, they're gonna be the reason we get another Trump administration. So let's talk about exactly what's gonna happen when we get ourselves another Trump administration. Let's jump into the second main event of the evening. All right, y'all, here we go. Y'all already know what the deal is. Mode. Cheers. Love y'all. Hope everybody's having a great night tonight. I'm having fun. Let's do this.
Mother Jones just dropped an expose called "To Understand J.D. Vance, You Need to Meet the Theo Bros." And we're going to unpack that today. Theo Bros are a young group of church leaders who create content aimed at vocally and openly pushing a Christian nationalist agenda and share many of the same talking points of VP candidate J.D. Vance. Compared to these men, the religious right of the Reagan era seems like child's play. They call for a government run according to Christian beliefs, believe the 19th Amendment should be repealed and votes should be made by men to represent the will of his entire family, and favor doing away with the Constitution entirely in favor of a system of justice built around the 10 Commandments. Where did this movement come from? How big of a threat do they actually pose? And what in the literal Handmaid's Tale is going on around here? But first, a palate cleanser. Hi,
wait, hang on. There's Toto. I agree. No. Some of these leftists are not. No, they're absolutely not. They're absolutely not. And it's not just the ones like Jill Stein saying, I deliberately want to take Michigan from Kamala. There's a lot of tankies who literally, like they're on some Joker shit, like burn it all down. Like they literally think, fuck the system, fuck the Democrats. It'd be great if the Republicans won. Like they're in chaos mode. They want to goon, right? They're like, oh, fuck, let's goon this thing. MAGA. That was literally MAGA, right? Trump's not a politician. He's gonna get rid of the deep state. He's gonna kick out. He's gonna drain the swamp. Trump was the swamp. But that's what they think. They're literally so. Y'all think I'm playing? They're so mad. They're so mad at the Democrats that they want to hand the country to Trump. They're not really leftists. They're not really leftists. That's why we stopped and did the whole purity testing at the beginning, because I'm not going to let a bunch of fucking tankies tell me I'm not a leftist when y'all are trying to sabotage the only Democratic hopeful we have and bring about another Trump administration. Now, you're not going to tell me I'm not left enough. That's not going to happen. We're not doing that no more. That's done. Those days are over.
So sorry to break it to you, but the holidays are somehow coming up so fast and they get busy. And the last thing I want to do in between cooking a turkey for my loved ones is prepping goopy, all-natural food for my dog. Oh, this is Moira. Moira is perfect in every way, but she's also high maintenance, skin allergies, and she's a bulldog, so she's
that is it, Toto. That's their thinking. Their thinking is literally accelerationism. Like pour the gasoline on this thing and watch it all burn to the ground. Shimami said, I'm confused by is the question of do those of you more concerned about Palestine than what's actually happening here and what laws are killing people here. Do you want U.S. military intervention? Yeah, they must. And yeah, they are more concerned about that than what's happening here. Absolutely more concerned.
Goopy girl, so feeding her food that's good for her and easy to prep and clean is a must. Moira loves Sundays for dogs, and so do I. Sundays is dog food that works with your life. No defrosting, no prep, no cleanup, just healthy and easy. Sundays is 100% human grade and uses only real food ingredients that you can recognize.
All right, I'm letting the capitalism go because it's cute.
It's not kibble, pre-cooked, or frozen.
This is capitalism.
Theology more. So yeah, I read some manifestos and watched some podcast episodes in service of all of us. I sacrificed myself and my algorithm, okay? So we'll get into that. But first, a quick overview of some key players.
Y'all, can I talk about sacrificing the algorithm? I wish y'all could see my YouTube Premium feed. I pay for YouTube Premium, but because of the content I make, oh, I just wish I could see the shit that's all over my YouTube feed. That's what she means to say sacrifice my algorithm. I just you know, people log into YouTube and it's all fun and gaming and puppies and cats playing piano and memes, and it's just a place of joy and wonder. Mine is fascism and Trump supporters and whatever Tucker Carlson said recently and Elon Musk and Christian national. It's just, oh, it's a wasteland.
And how this is all interconnected. There's Douglas Wilson, a 71-year-old boomer pastor in Idaho whose generation has been largely rejected by these Theo bros as too soft. But Wilson has been accepted because of his effective use of social media to say the things others are too scared to say. His work and books helped lay the groundwork for this movement. For example, Fidelity, How to Be a One-Woman Man, in which he wrote that sex cannot be egalitarian. The man penetrates, conquers, colonizes plants, while the woman receives, surrenders, accepts. He also wrote the 1996 book Southern Slavery as It Was, in which he argued that slavery wasn't actually that bad. It was a mutually beneficial relationship filled with benevolent masters. He also promotes the idea that men, as heads of households, should cast the votes, and that women's suffrage was a mistake. In July...
And so again, like tankies, that sound good to y'all? Theocracy sound good to y'all? Because that's what y'all want. That's what y'all want now. Y'all are like, yeah, burn it all down. Kamala's gonna lose. We're gonna put Trump in, and then what? And then what?
This year, Wilson shared a stage at the National Conservatism Conference with, among others, Senators Josh Hawley, Ron Johnson, and Mike Lee, as well as J.D. Vance. He also shared the stage at another conference with Donald Trump himself. Then there's Joel Webbin, a 41-year-old pastor with an extensive social media presence who has pointed to Douglas Wilson as inspiration.
Thanks, Katina. Appreciate you.
Quietly in fear of being canceled and persecuted. When he saw Wilson doing this stupid online, he was like, oh my God, I can do that too. So now he preaches and posts about how Taylor Swift single-handedly caused the declining birth rate and how women should never be loud.
For men, don't be weak. For women, don't be loud. Like a gold.
He said it, y'all. Like, these people say it. These people are gone. Gone. Like, gone.
Ring in the snout of a pig, so too it is with a woman who is not modest.
Oh my goodness.
He also says Africans should be blamed for the transatlantic slave trade because they helped the Europeans capture other Africans. Cool. His followers include 33-year-old Brian Salve, a Christian recording artist and a pastor in Utah. He regularly argues that women's primary function is to have babies and was thrilled about Vance's comments about childless cat ladies who are miserable, a sentiment that clearly mirrored his and his fellow Theo Bros' fears about birth rates, families, and women's roles. He's also a raging anti-Semite.
Surprise.
Then there's Josh Abatoy, executive director of the American Reformer, a favorite Theo Bro publication. Not only has Abatoy been involved with what he's called strategic planning sessions for Project 2025, his publication, American Reformer, has an editor and publisher.
Today, in my evolutionary biologist husband's class, 6 students got up and walked out because of the mention of human evolution. Oh my goodness. I don't know what to say, yo. That's just so sad. I'm not surprised. I've had some I have students walk out of my class once in a while, and I don't think about like, oh, maybe I just said something offensive to them about evolution. I normally just think like they're bored today. They don't want to do what we're doing. They've decided class is a waste of their time today. Um, doesn't happen a lot, but you know, college students are college students. You never know. Who knows why they do what they do? But that's rough. But yeah, hit me up on Discord too, Toto, because I want to talk to your husband. Is he teaching at high school? Sounds like maybe at college. He's an evolutionary biologist, so he's probably maybe he's teaching in a college like I am. That's just sad. It's sad because those babies were lied to. You know what I mean? It's like those babies were lied to, and now you have them in a setting to educate them, and then you can't educate them because part of their indoctrination was training in how to ward off education. So you trying to teach them, but they done been lied to so badly that they won't even stay in the room unless you teach them. That just breaks my heart. It really does. And that's what I mean, like dealing with these Theo bros. Like we have to come to a time where we just look at this thing in the face and we say, is it true? Oh, it's not? Then it's time to get rid of it. I really do think that we need the courage of our convictions because we're letting way too much go. We're letting way too much go, man. We're losing people. We're losing. Those are babies. Got kids walking out my class. These kids they ain't even voted. They ain't even got jobs yet. Like that's crazy, man. They supposed to learn. Supposed to be learning. That makes me sad. I just taught biology today. I'm a biology teacher. That shit breaks my heart. That breaks my heart.
Publisher named Chris Buzzkirk, a man who co-founded the Rockbridge Network, a secretive right-wing donor group that also counts Leonard Leo and Peter Thiel among its ranks. Another co-founder
Yes,
of
Andrew,
the
I
Rockbridge
completely
Network,
agree.
JD Vance. And then there's Stephen Wolfe, who wrote a Doug Wilson-endorsed book called The Case for Christian Nationalism in 2022, which has become a bit of a manifesto for the movement.
And don't lose sight of this title, right? Like the case for Christian nationalism. That could seem like a very default title, but don't think that, y'all. If it's right in line with the case for Christ, the case for God, right? It's showing you the marriage of the apologetics, the Christian nationalism, the late stage capitalism, the rabid conservative fever dream. Like it's all coming together.
In that book, Wolfe espouses the idea that
Oh no, biology for non-majors. Oh no. That's like my favorite class. Like that's the best. That's the best. Oh, this breaks my heart, Toto. Put them in touch with me though. I'm still trying to we gotta network and support each other.
America as a nation should be a specific set of historically connected people, specific people though, not a hodgepodge of beliefs and ethnicities. And this idea has been adopted resoundingly by the Theo Bro movement.
A nation is not an economic zone. It's not merely a set of moral principles. It has to be at some level, at the most basic level, it has to be people in place, a particular people. And multiculturalism is not your friend.
So that when JD Vance got on stage at the RNC this summer and said that America is not just an idea, it is a group of people with a shared history and a common future. It is, in short, a nation.
But America is not just an idea. It is a group of people with a shared history and a common future. It is, in short, a nation. Now, it is part of that tradition, of course, that we welcome newcomers. But when we allow newcomers into our American family, we allow them on our terms.
He was dog whistling.
There was so much wrong with that. Like, you know, it's like, is JD Vance speaking? Yes. Oh, well, something dumb just came out of his mouth. But first off, I love how he had that long-winded thing just to come around to America as a nation. No, is it really? Is it a country, you mean? Really? Like it's got boundaries and a government and a military and all that stuff. Oh, I didn't know that. Did you guys know that? Do you guys know America was a country? It's just crazy. They act like that's a profound thing to say. But then it's just so weird, right? That when we let people into our family, we let them in on our terms. Bro, is that how you do with your family? Like you don't even pretend to do unconditional love in your family. You don't even pretend. You don't even pretend that I'll accept my children the way they are. You don't even pretend. You're like, nah. It's just crazy, bro. Like, you're so weird. Like, JD Vance, I don't want to be in your family, bro. Don't welcome me in your family. I don't want to be welcomed in your family.
For
Your
all to
family
hear
weird.
in order to ignite the Christian nationalist base that would immediately recognize their ideology in his words. Stephen Wolfe popularized the tenets of this form of Christian nationalism in his book, but another actor, William Wolfe, no relation, has taken it to government and written a literal manifesto. William Wolfe served in the Trump administration both as deputy assistant.
This is another thing, Sumami. Like, I will say this. I think like most of us, I oppose genocide and apartheid regimes anywhere they may be. But I certainly admit I'm not aware of them and often not informed about them. And that's not an excuse. It's just me being honest. I do try to like go out of my way, like even to get to where I'm at on Israel and Palestine. I had to do a lot of education since October 7th because it just wasn't something I felt informed enough about. And so I had to learn a lot. And, I'm certainly, you guys and Gather, my friends and crew, and whether it's here, Discord, just our conversations in general, you guys have taught me a lot. And Tsunami in particular has made me aware of several other conflicts and genocides going on that we don't even talk about. But I wanted to pause on this comment to mention this to the other people, like them tankies and them other leftists, because are y'all gonna do the same thing over those? Right? Like, are you gonna, there's like, what do you say? Y'all not even, so what? Y'all don't care about Pakistan? So it's okay to vote? It's weird to take a stand on an international genocide, be willing to sabotage your entire country's system over a genocide in another country, and then be mum's the word on other international genocides. I think Sumam is absolutely right in the fact that most Americans don't care in general about international conflicts, but at least they're consistent in just ignoring them rather than picking and choosing which ones they care and don't care about. But yeah, it does seem glaring that the leftists are protesting the DNC over Palestine, but have nothing to say about Pakistan or anything else.
Secretary of Defense and Director of House Affairs at the Department of State. He's also connected to the Heritage Foundation, of course, and he got a personal shout out from Chief Project 2025 architect Russell Vogt on Twitter, who said he was proud to work with William Wolfe on scoping out a sound Christian nationalism. Wolfe also contributed to a manifesto often cited by other Theo bros released in May 2023 called The Statement on Christian Nationalism and the Gospel. The key authors of the manifesto are listed as James Silberman and Dusty Devers. Dusty Devers is a state senator in Oklahoma. Silberman is Devers' executive assistant. Besides William Wolfe, Joel Webbin, the Theo bro who thinks Taylor Swift is the devil, is also listed as a contributing editor. I read the statement on Christian nationalism and the gospel word for word, so you don't have to. It really clearly lays out the entire premise behind at least their definition of Christian nationalism. Basically, God, the Christian God specifically, should be the highest ruler in all aspects of life, and everything that controls human life should answer first and foremost to this Christian God. God has created spheres of influence over life that should all answer to him, but that should never overlap. The church...
Okay, now there's a lot here, but this is the problem. Let me go back a little bit. Let's listen to this rhetoric again.
Nationalism and the gospel word for word, so you don't have to.
All right, here we go, y'all. I want everybody to zone in because I got a quiz for y'all afterwards, so pay attention.
Really clearly lays out the entire premise behind at least their definition of Christian nationalism.
All right, here we go.
Basically,
let's listen.
God, the Christian God specifically, should be the highest ruler in all aspects of life, and everything that controls human life should answer first and foremost to this Christian God.
All right, so God should be the head of everything, and then everything in life should answer and be subject to God. Okay, got it.
God has created spheres of influence
God has created spheres of influence.
over life that should all answer to him, but that should never overlap. The church
Okay, all the spheres of influence shouldn't overlap, but they should all answer to him. Cool, got it.
should provide salvation. The family should provide guidance and education, through the man, of course.
All right, so church provides salvation. The family provides education. That's a bit weird. I don't know that most parents aren't educators. I thought education was my job at the university. I thought that's what schools were for, but okay.
And the government should provide God-honoring justice.
The government should provide God-honoring justice. Got it.
It states, we affirm that civil authorities are God's servants of justice who must know who their master is and what he requires of them. We affirm that all human authorities, including civil, possess authority only as it has been delegated to them by God, and accordingly are accountable to him to serve the people as revealed in his word.
Now, here's the quiz. Take this out of the context of political statements, political pamphlets, political sloganeering. What about that was just laid out, this sort of Christian nationalist version of, you know, their TED Talk, their little manifesto, their little declaration of who they are, their mission statement. What about their mission statement was right-wing? Because if you ask me, I'd say not a goddamn thing. If you took out the fact that this isn't a political brochure, like I said, if you took it out of its political context and just threw those words out there, God created everything, God's the head, everybody should bow to him, everything, right? The problem I have that I'm getting at, y'all, and this is what I mean about we need to address the problems with Christianity. People on the left can't fight against this because most of them are Christians. There's nothing about that statement that most of them would disagree with. If it was said in church on Sunday morning, they'd be right there. Amen. Hallelujah, brother. Hallelujah. That's the problem. Like I said, if they were straight racist, we could fight against it. If they were straight sexist, we could fight against it. Straight bigots, we could fight against it. They are every single one of those things. But they wrap it in a cross, and people's brains are just fucking breaking left and right. Because they've been indoctrinated in the same thing. And so they have figured out that is the linchpin. And these same people, because most people on the left are Christians, let's just be honest, they believe that stuff. They don't like the fact that these people put it in their politics because they have to be reminded of it. They don't like that. And they don't like that they go after certain groups, but they don't disagree that that's what their Bible says. They worship the same God. They go to church on Sunday morning carrying the same Bible. And when you really press them, most of them will tell you, hey, I'm a God-fearing man. Well, tell me what that means exactly. Well, it means in my life, God is the head of my life. And then I am over my wife, and we as parents are over our kids. And that is how God has set it up. I'm a godly man. Sound like a misogynist pig to me, but okay. Right? Like that's where they're at. They do think everything in their life should be serving God. So and I'm not saying this to crap all over them. I'm really not. I'm saying that for those of us that think differently, to recognize the challenge and start to bring it to them, to start to point out to them, I know you're trying to help. And I know that you've been following this faith to be good and to help, but it's really time that we talk about how you buy this stuff. You buy into the same worldview they do. And so it's really hard for me to rely on y'all to keep them out of power because you're vulnerable to the same language.
We affirm that God has armed civil authorities with the sword of justice to promote citizens' welfare without partiality.
Spiritual
by
bigots.
1,
Yeah,
writing and
exactly.
enforcing just laws that are a terror to those who do evil. 2, defending and approving those who do good. And 3, avenging victims of crimes with speedy justice and proportional punishments for evildoers. Like, what in the medieval times kind of language is that? However, that being said, after reading this manifesto and immersing myself in this Theo bro social media landscape, I think the motivation behind this movement is this. These people are scared of the same things we all are. They have a sense that the world is chaos, that things feel less safe now, that there is strong division in this country, and that this country's future feels very uncertain. They're also being inundated by way more information than our brains were meant to intake daily through social media, just like the rest of us.
All right, no, this is interesting. Like I do relate to that. I have a lot of compassion for that. I do think that a lot of times people use it just to be like rhetorically, I don't know, like try to sound smart or something. But I think those are serious things. Yeah, like the future's uncertain. Like there's no way if you'd have told me growing up in the 90s that when I was damn near 40, we'd be fighting, a fascist Trump regime and Christian nationalism would be on the rise. And I'm like, it's just hard. And that, that we would make 2 step forwards on LGBTQ rights and then 10 step backwards. Right. Like there's just so many things I would have never been able to predict. And yeah, our country is divisive. And yeah, I am scared of the future. And things do feel really uncertain right now. This is stuff that people in my real life tell me all the time. So, to me, it doesn't change anything. It's just to me validates that we have irreconcilable differences, I call them.
They're also feeling like just a consumerist cog in a capitalist machine. And their solution to this is to turn to God, which they believe is all-knowing and all-powerful and has a plan. And that makes sense. I wish I could turn my brain off and think, well, there's a higher power with a plan. No need to have daily existential meltdowns. God knows what's happening. I just have to follow what he wrote in this book. And so they cling.
It all just depends, Sumami. Like they're definitely, we're overall like the historical trends, things are definitely getting better. But people feel things in very strange timelines, if that makes any sense. So you could have grown up, for instance, in a city, maybe you were working class or lower even coming up. There was a lot of crime and violence and things around you, and you worked your way out, you got educated. I'm thinking of somebody like my mom, just to be clear. I ain't trying to throw none of y'all under the bus. But, now you've got into, like a good, like you're financially secure, you're safe, like you live in a good neighborhood and da-da-da-da-da. But you hear certain reports about certain things, right? And so even though the arc of your life has been upward mobility, things are much better, things are much safer, you're now kind of disconnected from certain communities and you start to hear certain things. So you might perceive that things are getting worse, even though most of us will be like, there ain't nothing gonna happen to you. Like, it's just weird how people perceive things, right? You see that with the Anna Kasparian sort of like arc, right? Like things are getting better, but she was apparently victimized in the park and now she just lost her fucking mind and went all the way to the right because she's so concerned about crime. So it is very interesting just to think about what scale of time and people make those comparisons on, and then also how that interacts like with their personal history.
To what's written in this old book, and to them the solution is, okay, if I can get everyone on board with this book, then I never have to interact with people with different beliefs or cultural practices than me. If we close down our borders and disallow anyone who's different to come in, everything would be better. So, of course, to them, immigration and globalization would be the number one threat to humanity because they cannot handle being faced with differences. And their solution is not to work towards building a nation that embraces differences. It is instead to build a nation that excludes differences at all costs.
Yeah, and that gets back to this comment that AR made about fear mongering on the right. Like, I think let's think about what that really is. It's people who have power, largely in privilege, who have been able to historically marginalize other groups, who are really like sort of reviving this sort of aggrieved identity politics. But that's how it works, right? It's like they really want to marginalize. They want to keep immigrants out. They want to make sure women don't have control. They want to suppress the Black vote. They want to disenfranchise LGBTQ people, right? So it is clearly them grabbing for power and trying to exclude others. But that is not consistent with their psyche and their personal image of themselves, especially as Christians. So instead, that's where the fear mongering comes in. By making them afraid, oh, the world's becoming godless, they're murdering all the babies, they're eating the cats and the dogs, they're transing the kids, the Blacks are going to turn this into a socialist country, all that type of bullshit. Well, now people feel justified in acting as instruments of the marginalization of others because they're defending themselves. It's basically what we call the cry bully phenomenon. But this is how you create cry bullies. You tell the people in power, the people in privilege, the people who are actually causing all the problems, that they're the ones who are being attacked and they need to defend themselves. And so now they feel perfectly justified in doing all these terrible things to other people.
Has one singular identity with maybe some regional differences, but all united under one God because they're scared and that feels safe. And then they hide it behind rhetoric that ignores our country's history by saying, well, our country was founded on a Christian belief system. And look at all these Christian denominations that were allowed to create their own Christian schools at the founding in order to protect their culture from infiltration by outsiders. What an amazing thing to not have outsiders infiltrating your religious beliefs, wouldn't you say? They ignore that we are a country of immigrants that were escaping persecution, especially religious persecution.
Wait, so Mama, you got to take me with you. So it's going to be me, you, Jer. We're going to have a big polycule somewhere. some safe European country. We could just all pretend we're married. Like we're all married. But there's 9 of you. There's like I don't even, right? There's like 9 of us. Like half of us are trans, men, women. They can't even figure. No, we're all together. We're all together. We're all together. We all got the same ring. We're all together. You have to take all of us to your apartment. Hope it's big enough.
Beginning and doing so by pushing out indigenous people who lived here.
They don't even know. We all gonna be together.
Who definitely were not Christians, and they're ignoring that the draw of colonial America was and is the ability to have the freedom to continue living in whatever culture and religion you believe in and practice. They are willfully ignoring that strongly rooted history of religious freedom in favor of a version of history where we were one united Christian nation that has since been denigrated by heathenist, non-God-fearing immigrants, as though there weren't people living in America at its founding that were not Christians. Spoiler alert, there were. There's also a strong rejection of what they call derogatorily anti-racism. They claim, oh no, we're not white Christian nationalists. We don't care about the color of anyone's skin, so long as we all believe in the same God and share the same culture. My neighbor could be Black, but as long as we have a shared identity and history and believe in the same God, then we'll live in harmony. All while also saying that the practice of anti-racism is our true identity in America right now, and that anti-racism teaches us to hate ourselves, hate our country, hate our fathers, and hate our history.
Anti-racist. Yep. That's what America is. America is a country that hates itself. Japan doesn't hate itself. Japan isn't losing sleep, burdened by guilt. I feel like we're only, one of the few countries that is ashamed of our past, hates ourselves, and
in all of this,
but see, that's how it works for these people. It's like literally they're the racist, and it's so obvious. Racism is their identity. You smell the racism before you even see them in the room. But then what they do is they turn CRT into a boogeyman. They turn affirmative action into a boogeyman. They turn, hey, the Democrats really want immigration. People keep forgetting how racism, that's racism, because really what they say to them is, hey, they just want to import more black and brown people to vote for the Democrats, right? Like that's their whole thinking, right? And so again, you scare them up, and once you get them scared, then they'll go to war for you. They'll start suppressing other people and taking away their rights because now they're scared.
There is a glaring and willful overlooking not only of the indigenous people who lived here long before white immigrants took over and destroyed their way of life, but also a willful overlooking of the whole transatlantic slave trade thing. They are correctly identifying the unique position of America in reckoning with its history and how uncomfortable that is. Because slavery is not a distant thing that no longer impacts us. There are people in this country who have grandfathers whose grandfathers owned humans. And they live amongst other people in this country who have grandfathers whose grandfathers were enslaved by those same people. And instead of recognizing that and saying, hey, that's fucked up, and acknowledging that there's no way that the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade or the Jim Crow era terrorism that followed can be forgotten in a single generation or two, instead their solution is to ignore it, to say, well, if you want to work towards anti-racism, then you hate your history. If you don't say only good, nice things about our forefathers, then you're a sinner, because the fifth commandment says honor your father. And you hate yourself, and you hate your country. And then they call it revisionist history to acknowledge that, say, Thomas Jefferson owned enslaved humans at the same time he was writing the Declaration of Independence, and that's kind of fucked up, wouldn't you say? So they're saying honor your forefathers, but also ignore the whole First Amendment thing banning the imposition of state-mandated religion. In fact, the whole Constitution, the rule of law should be based solely on the 10 Commandments, but honor your forefathers. Make it make sense. And for me,
and this is why they can't have, again, another religious buzzword is truth and reconciliation. They can't have truth because these are the truths they can't deal with. Most people like me don't give a fuck about Thomas Jefferson, and that's why. As soon as you tell me, oh, the authors of the Declaration of Independence also owned slaves while they wrote the Declaration of Independence, I no longer give a shit what they think about freedom, democracy, or independence. The real revisionist history is pretending like slavery was moral back then because we hadn't learned better. That's bullshit. And if you're one of these people who kind of low-key kind of still romanticizes those people because of that, you need to seriously reevaluate like your perspective on American history. Truth is, like, we should just redo all of this. Like, it's not that hard. Part of the problem is, again, it's the religion. We treat the founding fathers and the sort of history of America from that time very much like they are the authors of the Bible. And that they were somehow magically supremely wise and disciplined, and they were all genius, and we don't know shit. We can't figure out. We don't know shit. We're living right now. What do we know? We're nowhere. We're never gonna be as smart as the founding fathers. When like a lot of our problems are just literally because our system is so old. Like being one of the world's oldest democracies is like not a good thing because it means the younger ones have better constitutions. So we literally should just scrap it. I think the Constitution we have is fucking worthless. I'm not one of these people who's going to go this far. I know, again, we're in a charged political climate right now, and I don't want to sound like I'm, trying to undermine democracy, but I literally just think, fuck the founding fathers. Let's write a new constitution. We could fix so many problems, and then we wouldn't have to hang on to this problematic history of the founding father. It would be part of our history, but we would have continued to revise our union for our current times, which is what I think we should be doing anyway. So I don't know. I hate the fact that we literally worship the founding fathers like they're Jesus's disciples.
Truly, one of the reasons I harp on right-wing lunatics and study the movements and actions of the right throughout recent history is because I am genuinely trying to wrap my head around how someone can justify why they do what they do and why they believe what they believe. Because I don't think these people are sitting up at night saying, haha, what new evil bad thing can I come up with next? I think they sleep soundly at night in the belief that they are doing the right thing. And I'm sure they think the same thing about me, that I sleep soundly at night despite the fact that I advocate for killing the preborn and forcing kids to turn trans. It's all about the framing. So how has this been framed for them as the right thing to do? And I think it all comes down to the cult-like indoctrination that comes with religiosity at this level. And I don't think that you are a victim of a cult generally if you practice religion, don't get me wrong. But reading, for example,
I disagree. This is one of those things. Love Legion Miller. Let's get married anytime. But no. Sorry. I'm just going to hit you with a different truth. If you are practicing a modern contemporary religion, you are a victim of a cult. Sorry, you are. You are in a high control group that demands dedication and lots of your time, resources, and literally your personal identity, and they cannot demonstrate the truth of anything they claim to you. You are a victim of a cult. I just think that needs to be clear. Like, okay, I'm not gonna stay on the soapbox, y'all, but let me just put it to you like this. How good would that be if we could just take that one step? Right. I don't know if it's got to be in like the DSM-6 or like some official board has to get together, but somebody just needs to take a basic look at most of the modern religions. How are they practiced? And for real. None of this patronizing bullshit. Because when people do this, they think they're just being nice by giving people a pass. But cults exist on a spectrum. Okay, they don't all have to be Jim Jones level crazy. They don't even have to be MAGA crazy. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're not a cult. And it would really go a long way if we stop saying that. Because here's what happens. I'm gonna keep it really real with y'all. I'll keep it really real with y'all. This is how it happens. If I were to tell my mother that she's in a cult because she's a Christian, that would be true. But she would think I'm an asshole. Well, why would she think I'm an asshole? She would think I'm an asshole because I said something to her that nobody else is saying, right? Nobody else will say to her that being a Christian is a cult. And nobody else will say to any other Christians that being a Christian is a cult. So by not taking this seriously at a collective level, like a high level in society, we make it really difficult on those of us that are trying to like do this work individually. Like, give us some backup. Because like if Legion Miller, and she's got to think differently. She got to think differently as a YouTube is her living or part of her living or whatever. You know, content creators got to make their own decisions. I'm not here to throw shade at anybody, for real. But it would help, right? Because every time a person with thousands and thousands of followers gives all religious people that pass, it's just like, come on. Because if she said it, and then Legal Eagle started saying it, and then all of a sudden somebody on MSNBC said it, and then all of a sudden somebody else on CNN said it, then my mother would say it to me. Instead of me saying it to her, I just came to have dinner. Hey, this meatloaf is great. Hey, Jason, I know you're an unbeliever. I was watching CNN the other day, and Anderson Cooper said that he thinks, or whatever his name is, he said he thinks that Christianity is a cult. Do you really think I'm in a cult? Thought this day would never come. You know, Ma, I think you're beautiful. I think you're one of the most wonderful people I've ever known. But yes, I do actually think Christianity is a cult. Right? How different is that? How different is that? And how much more likely is that to really get people in these cults to think critically about it? Right now, I'm just one person pissing in the damn wind. So yeah, I would do anything. I would pay money. I would do anything to get us to just turn the corner on this narrative and start moving in the right direction.
their statement on Christian nationalism and the gospel, the words they use and the way they speak is so foreign to me as an outsider and comes out so naturally to them that they have clearly internalized
Yes,
the
Roar. Religion
teachings
is a
they've
cult that got really popular.
gotten from the
Exactly.
Bible in a way that completely infects their worldview.
We're
For
forced
example,
into.
the statement on Christian nationalism states,
We affirm that in addition to possessing the titles of Savior, Messiah, and many others, Jesus, the Son of God, who is truly God, is also the King of all earthly kings, the Lord of all earthly lords, and the lawmaker for all earthly lawmakers. He is the possessor of all authority in heaven and on earth. We affirm that as God, Jesus Christ is preeminent over all creation. Sovereignty rules over all things visible and invisible in heaven, earth, and hell, and ordains all things according to the counsel of his perfect will for the good of those who are in him. We affirm that in his mediatorial rule, Christ rules by his spirit and word through these saints in their earthly authority. We also affirm that as sovereign King of kings, Christ has commanded all civil authorities, Christian and non-Christian alike, to execute his will on the earth to orient humankind toward himself through the moral law. We affirm that Christ alone, through the blood of his cross, grants repentance and forgiveness of sins to reconcile sinners to his Father.
like,
All right. So that is their statement, and she's going to make a point about that. But I want to make a point about this first, and it's going to kind of circle back to what I was saying earlier. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to tell you. But listen to this, because that was kind of squirrely. But let's throw this. We affirm that in addition to possessing the titles of Savior, Messiah, and many others, Jesus, the Son of God, who is truly God, is also the King of all earthly kings, the Lord of all earthly lords, and the lawmaker for all earthly lawmakers. He is the possessor of all authority in heaven and on earth. We affirm that as God, Jesus Christ is preeminent over all creation, sovereignly rules over all things visible and invisible in heaven, earth, and hell, and ordains all things according to the counsel of his perfect will for the good of those who are in him. We affirm that in his mediatorial rule, Christ rules with his spirit and word through the saints in their earthly authority. We also affirm that as sovereign King of kings, Christ has commanded all civil authorities, Christian and non-Christian alike, to execute his will on the earth to orient humankind toward himself through the moral law. We affirm that Christ alone, through the blood of his cross, grants repentance and forgiveness of sins to reconcile sinners to his Father. All right, so quick side note. Notice the harmony in there. There was definitely some things in there where if you don't know better, you would miss that there's some clear attempts to harmonize Catholicism and evangelical Christianity. It's very interesting the way this was written. There were certain things that were put in there. You could tell they were put in there as a nod to Catholics to include them, but they were done in a way that would not offend or upset evangelicals. Now, I don't know if y'all picked up on all that, but it's in there. And it's very important because you have to remember that's a big part of what is unique about Christian theocracy right now. Is it's a unique thing where evangelicals and Catholics are sort of creating a much bigger political tent that they're now happy to dwell under harmoniously. That didn't always used to be the case. The more important thing is I wanted to go back to two things. Number one is the thing I said earlier about how if you take this out of its political context, if you take this out of its election context, if you remove this from a political organization, there's nothing right-wing about this. If you are a Catholic in America, if you are an evangelical Christian in America, a Protestant in America, an Orthodox Christian in America, there's nothing in this you don't agree with. I don't care if you're on the right, on the left, in the middle, or upside down. This is just standard, fair Christianity. Jesus is Lord, God rules, he's the King of the King, he's the ultimate lawgiver, he's sovereign over all things visible and invisible. God sent his perfect spirit and his will through Jesus Christ. There's nothing about this that is right wing. So we make the mistake of saying that this is an example of far right, radical Christian nationalism. No, 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 no. Mm-mm, mm-mm. This is just standard, regular, everyday Christian shit. And it's why the Christians in the middle and on the left can't help us. Because at the end of the day, when the rubber meets the road, they agree with all of this. All of it. They agree with every single word of it. I've heard people on the left say things like, yeah, all these school shootings are happening because they took God out the schools. That's how they think. They're just as Christ-brained as the right-wingers. Don't get it twisted. The other thing about this, and this is the thing I was thinking about earlier, this is who Jesus was. You know, as a non-believer, I don't believe Jesus was God. I'm kind of agnostic in the sense that I don't know if Jesus was actually a historical person. I'm not a committed mythicist. I'm not a committed historicist. I don't think either of those camps has come anywhere near what could be called the proof. But let's set mythicism aside and say Jesus was historical. And let's set skepticism aside, say, I don't believe he's God. I don't believe in the miracles. But setting aside the miracles, setting aside the God claims, let's just take the Jesus story at face value as more or less what happened to a historical person, right? I know y'all are like, Jay, you feeling okay? Like, Jay, blink twice if you need help. I'm all right, y'all. We're doing this for the sake of the exercise, okay? We're doing this for the sake of the exercise, okay? So for the sake of the exercise, the Bible is true story of Jesus. What did they crucify him for? Right? He really would have been crucified for something very much akin. If you believe the INRI, inscription over his cross and all this type of shit, he would have been an insurrectionist, basically. Why? Because it was against Rome. Didn't like you saying, well, we really have a savior. Our guy is really the ruler. He really has the power. He's really the king. He really has dominion over this land. You know, y'all can act all cute if you want to. You can act all cute if you want to, but that's the story we were told. Pontius Pilate didn't go around hanging people for being religious leaders. People didn't get crucified for praying, for reading scriptures and leading people in, religious and spiritual instruction. They were crucified for violating the civil order. They were crucified for breaking the law. They were crucified for being a threat to the civil order. So if you're to really believe that Jesus was such a revolutionary because of his rebellion, then that's why they killed him. So what am I getting at? I'm basically saying Christians have always intended to have superior dominion even over the government. If we're to even believe the Jesus story, that's what he was crucified for. He was crucified because Rome didn't like his followers running around behind him saying he's really the king. He really has the dominion. He's really the lawgiver. He's really the king. And when he wants to turn this motherfucker out, ain't nothing y'all gonna be able to do about it. Oh, really? Pontius Pilate was like, oh, really? Hang him up. Actually, he's like, I find no fault in this man, right? And then they're saying, well, no, he claims he can't. Well, let's string him up. So I literally was thinking about this earlier, and I was like, man, if you think about it that way, this is always who they've been. This is why I'm trying to tie it together now. This is why that higher power shit is not cute. right? See, we treat it like a fashion statement. Oh, this is the yarmulke I wear. It's just it's just a stylish, just kind of a reminder that there's a higher authority. No. You work in the government. You're like, excuse me, what'd you say? Higher authority than what? Right? See, it's cute, but when you really get to it, no, we start talking about politics. No. What you mean a higher power? What you mean by higher power? Right? That's a threat to the government. You really saying if God wanted to, he snapped this thing and he turned this whole thing out. Yeah, governments can't really have that. We can't really have y'all running around making plans and deciding what y'all gonna do and y'all take it over for your cult and your savior comes and gives y'all dominion over all of us. Yeah, we're not finna sit back and wait to watch that happen. So to me, like, it's why I don't want no parts of this anyway. Like that whole notion of there being an external being who's really the ultimate lawgiver and really has dominion over the earth and all that. I don't want no parts of that silly shit. And neither should anybody else, because again, when people really believe that, it has real consequences. And from the beginning, that's what I'm getting at. From the beginning, even if you believe the Jesus story, you could tell that governments have always had the proper response. This is a threat to the civil order. It's not cute. We don't have a higher power. The rest of us have to come together, coordinate, cooperate, come up with legal structures, come up with the system, come up with the government, and then that is really what we use to have a dominion and authority. It is not cute to pretend that you got some fairy tale higher power. That is actually a threat to the civil order.
Moral law. We affirm that Christ alone, through the blood of his cross, grants repentance and forgiveness of sins to reconcile sinners to his Father.
Like, that is a language you cannot speak unless you have been indoctrinated into that culture. I couldn't mimic this if I wanted to. And that shared language, phrases and words that mean one thing to us but take on whole new meanings to them, is one of many central features of a cult.
All right.
For me, the thing
and
that
this is where I say things like, this is where I used to feel things when I got into this community, like atheists need to go back to church. Or start to feel like it's been too long since you've been in church. Because, and again, everybody's got a different perspective, but for me, when I hear an atheist say, or somebody I assume is not super religious, say something like, I don't think everybody in a religion is in a cult, and then read a passage like that, and then come out on the other side of it and say, oh, I can't even wrap my head around that. I couldn't even emulate that. And, to me, that's super culty. That means you haven't been in church long enough. And what I mean by that is I could emulate that speech very well. Most of y'all can too, because when y'all was involved in church, y'all was really involved in church like that. And so to me, this is what I mean. If atheists went back to church, or if somebody like Legion Miller, went to go visit your local church for a month, just for a month, just spend, one service, just visit 4 different churches in your city. I would love to see more atheists do that. Why? Because you would get really powerful educational experiences. Like, holy shit, they say shit like this every single day in every single church. It doesn't even matter what denomination I go to. I went to the Presbyterian church and they were sounding like fucking crazy Christian nationalists. I went to the Catholic church and they was talking about Jesus is king and Lord over everything else. I went to the Baptist church. They were saying the same shit. Then I went to this really educated Methodist church. They said the same goddamn thing, right? Like, so she would realize, yeah, it ain't that deep. They all sound like this. So either none of them are in a cult, or the same way you've identified these political people as being members of a cult, you would then recognize that, yes, in fact, you hear this rhetoric consistent enough throughout all Christian churches, regardless of demographics, regardless of denomination. I'm going to then have to go ahead and say, y'all are all using this cult rhetoric. So take me up on my challenges sometimes, y'all. I don't be just spitting no bullshit. Sometimes I'll be saying that shit for a reason, y'all.
creepy about this cult level religious worship is their unflinching conviction that they for sure know the absolute truth. They have no doubt that their interpretation of the Bible is correct, that there is for sure a God, and that the way they are living their life is the one true, correct way to truly live his word. And in
Holy
fact,
shit, though, y'all. Yo, low key, this is such a good idea because I think that, like, a big part of what's so hard for people about leaving the church is that they lose that intentional community, right? And we always say we should like find a way to do that. And I think a roller rink's a great way because people who really get into like when I grew up, like that was one of the things you could do, right? It wasn't always a ton to do. You know, you could go to the movies, you could go to the mall, but shit, you could go to the roller rink, you could go to the ice skating rink, you could go bowling, right? It's only certain things you could do. So let me just say two things. I think it's really cool for atheist communities to like, yeah, like like, you know, rent one out and do a community event. Or I'm even thinking, y'all got me thinking like it'd be cool even locally to just rent one out just to have a night, just to say, oh, hey, this is a secular organization, and they just rented out the bowling alley for the night, and they're inviting all the high school kids to come bowl for free, like just some shit so that people could see that like non-believers are cool, they're normal people, and they can throw events and provide food and places to gather as well. But something like a community skating rink, like, oh, that's my heart. I just think that would be so cool. I think the events around it would be so cool. Like the culture, like it would be a real movement because people love to go places like that. All right, but here's the second thing. And this is the part y'all not gonna like as much. We have to do some things just to do things together. Right. So part of the problem with building community as atheists is that atheists don't have anything compelling them to do things they don't want to do. When you're in a church, not everybody likes the music. Not everybody likes the songs. But as a member of the worship team, we play the songs they tell us to play. We might not like all the songs, but none of us are going to quit or not come on a Sunday because they're making us play songs we don't want to play. Not everybody in the audience likes the songs, but they're going to sing the songs because they know it's important to participate in worship. So they're singing all the songs, right? When we go to game night, some people love different games. We'll have 3 or 4 different games out at game night. I've done this with churches. Okay, not everybody loves all the games, but they go because it's important to be at the community. It's important to just be around. So you're either going to be around, you're going to hang around the games and be cool and just and spectate and chit chat and eat pizza and have a good time, or you're just going to just find whichever game you think is the most interesting and play that. When we go outside and we play volleyball ain't everybody's favorite sport. Some people rather play basketball, some people rather play soccer, but we're playing volleyball. So you play volleyball because everybody's playing volleyball together, right? So that's the other part of building community. We have to kind of get a little bit of that community motivation in us where we say, you know, my friends all play chess. I'm gonna learn how to play chess. I may not ever be good, but a bunch of my friends play chess, so we get together and play chess, and that's a great way for us to bond. So I'm gonna learn chess so I can hang out with my friends. You know, I don't really love ice skating, but you know, we got together, form us a little secular organization. We rent out the ice skating rink once a month. So you know what? I learned how to ice skate. I learned how to ice skate because that was a way I could really build community with my people. Y'all see what I'm saying? Like we got to do a little bit of that. I'm guilty of it too. So don't think I'm preaching and not talking to myself, but like we all need to do that. Like it's not gonna be my favorite thing, but I'm gonna do it to be with my people.
If you doubt at all, your entire life is thrown into question, so best not to doubt. Threatening anyone who doubts is another feature of a cult. Anyone who is so certain of anything like that is a major red flag.
Don't compel me to be compelled for not being compelled. Yeah, Logan. This is why I'm messing with atheists like her and cats. This is why it's like her and cats. I love the independent spirit though, but that's what I'm doing.
Know that. It's culty and weird. And this is how they exist in the cognitive dissonance that they do.
Yo, we
because
trying to go to
they have
that.
been
We trying to
taught-
go. That's next year, next spring, Minneapolis. I'm gonna try to go to that. I think that's a great example. Yeah, we need to try to go to this. Let's try to get this on the calendar. Let's try to figure out what the arrangements are. Let's try to make that happen. Again, it may not be the ideal time. That may not be our ideal vacation destination. It may not be the best place to travel. May not be the best time of year to travel there. But hey, if that's a good place, we could all get together and it's affordable enough for a bunch of us. Hey, let's try to get there. And the sooner we organize, the better it is, because the sooner we organize, we could say, hey, so-and-so needs a room. You know, so-and-so is going to need to rent a car. So-and-so needs help getting a bus or train ticket. You know, and we could have time to help people with some of those things. So let's get to it, y'all.
not
I'm with
to
it.
question anything in the church and to question everything outside the church, which is another core characteristic of a cult. The Bible is the ultimate word of God, so it must be true. We cannot question that. We must follow.
Yes, the old school arcade. The old school arcade. Yes, no questions about it. And two things. One, arcades are making, I won't say a comeback, but people are buying like retro boxes. I'm in around Newark, so I've been seeing them different places. It's super cool. But also it's pretty affordable because now we have consoles and we have online gaming and stuff like that. So even like at my university, like in the student center, like where they eat and stuff, they just have like these TVs set up on these stands where there's like 3 TVs and they're all like kind of connected. That way, like if you're sitting around, you can see on the different sides and students just be in there. And I just love it. I literally just get so excited just seeing them in the student center, you know, playing FIFA together or whatever. I'll just be super excited just because I'm so excited to see students, you know, getting to know each other and having fun and bonding like that. So I'm totally with that, because that's the thing, you know, you get your little skating rink, put a couple TVs in that piece, have a little arcade room. Come on now, we about to have a whole community center up in this piece.
The word of God faithfully. And therefore, anything that makes me stop and question whether the word of God,
there you go,
maybe, I don't know, a
Sumami.
little
That's the
contradictory
plan
at
for me
times,
too.
maybe feels kind of mean and icky, like, I don't know, stoning women feels harmful, but no, that cannot be, because the word of God is the ultimate word and cannot be questioned. Therefore, my worldview has to contort around this one old book. And if you look at their worldview that way, it makes a lot more sense. Of course you think women should be quiet and small because you're trying to protect them from the public stoning that God requires. Of course men's vote should represent the entire family because that's what the one interpretation of the Bible that's allowed says. Ignore the protestation of millions of women who want a voice. It cannot be that their desires are right or that the word of God may be wrong. It must only be that they, the women, misguided sinners who must be led to the one true word of Christ in order to save them from themselves and from the liberal brainwashing they've received as a result of this country straying from the word of God. When you center everything around an unquestioning devotion to a single interpretation of a single book and a single all-knowing Lord and leader, yeah, that level of cult-like worship will allow you to justify all sorts of atrocities as part of your worldview.
Okay,
And
but again, this is this is the whole identity of the group. There are no Christians that are allowed to say it isn't all about the Bible. Even the ones who you and I would say clearly don't follow the Bible. They don't even read the Bible. They don't even like the Bible. In their mind, they're biblical. Oh, well, you know, that was the old covenant and out of context and Jesus is love and da-da-da. Like, so it's just very difficult because they all feel that way. They all make their worldview adhere to an ancient book. Again, the thing that is making J.D. Vance's sycophants say a man should just vote for his whole household is the same thing that made those 6 students walk out of class today when human evolution was mentioned, right? When human evolution was mentioned, them 6 students walked out of class. It's the same exact reason. Well, Darwin wrote his book more than 150 years ago. So we play this game with these people. We let them look us in the face and tell us they don't believe in evolution. And okay. We still have flat earthers. We have made it okay to be wrong in a way that is unacceptable. And it's very difficult for me now to accept people's dismay. Ooh, I found them words. I don't know where I found them words, Joe, but I found them words. It's difficult for me to accept people's dismay because I'm sitting there going, this is America. We have been letting these loony people live in their own reality since the beginning. We've always let people lie about the facts. We've always let people deny the evidence that's right in front of their face. Why are you acting so shocked now that it has consequences for you?
Coupled with the conclusion that if you do not fall in line, then you are a misguided sinner who has to be either saved or violently punished. This is what Amanda Montell, author of Cultish and host of the podcast Sounds
Absolutely,
Like a Cult,
Simone.
refers to as a thought-terminating cliche. These cliches are used to dismiss dissent or rationalize flawed reasoning. They are absolute statements that end an argument. What about all the women who want to vote and don't want to be quiet and small? Well, they're all just misguided sinners. But then when you call them out for their own transgressions, like, I don't know, harboring predators in the priesthood or secretly living a double life where they do all the things that they preach are bad, they also get to turn around and say, well, we're all sinners. And the conversation is done. It's convenient, it does away with dissent, and it's a core tool used by cults. And as with any good cult, whether it's your favorite MLM or the Christian nationalist movement, the people at the top with the most clout who are seen as closest to the leader, in this instance, these Theo bros who lead church congregations and claim to be the final word on the one correct interpretation of the Bible, the ultimate goal is always power and control, thinly veiled behind the lie that they simply are trying to help by spreading the good word. And so, of course, J.D. Vance and his ascendancy to VP candidate alongside Christian nationalist favorite Donald Trump, who sells Bibles despite likely never reading one, who praises Christians despite never acting like one, fits perfectly with the overall plan. Yes, J.D. Vance is a Catholic, not a Protestant like a lot of these guys. Yes, he's married to a Hindu woman and has mixed race kids, but he says the right dog whistles. And since power is really the end goal here, they're willing to fudge it a little bit.
And this is something that I just had to pause and give Sumami her props for, because Sumami is always calling out the blatant hypocrisy of J.D. Vance being married to a Hindu, and then actively promoting, white supremacy, basically. But just like Trump, they don't care. That's another thing that it's difficult to accept people's dismay. When have these people ever cared about consistency? When have they ever not been hypocrites? So I just expect this from them. Shit, I wouldn't be surprised if George Bush had a black girlfriend right now. I ain't playing. Somewhere right now, George Bush is laying in the bed of a thick old black chick lighting up a joint. That's just them. They not like us.
And it's also no wonder that in pursuit of power and control, there has been a strong overlap found between the Christian nationalist community and neo-Nazis, between Christian nationalists and racists, and between Christian nationalists and the various iterations of the manosphere, intent on exacting revenge on Jews, minorities, and women through power, control, and punishment. Some of these Christian nationalists can claim they don't care about race.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you this. I don't care about religious freedom. Fine. I don't think it really should be protected. I'm gonna say one of the more controversial things that I've probably maybe that I've said on this channel, or maybe than what y'all are used to hearing. When I revisit history and I hear different stories, I have a certain amount of admiration for governments that try to restrict religion. I know that sounds like the thing you're not supposed to say as an American. But look, I don't believe religions are true. I don't believe religions are good for people. I think they're harmful. And I do think they have a direct effect on your citizens' ability to be effective citizens. And so I have a certain amount of appreciation, especially in the climate of religious fervor that exists now and seems to have always existed, to try to check the power of religious institutions within your borders. I think it takes a lot of bravery and courage to do that, but I find it actually admirable. I don't think it's admirable to just let religion run amok. I really don't. I don't see what does that get you? It gets you the ability to say you have absolute religious freedom, but what are the results of that religious freedom, and what does religious freedom get you other than the ability to practice more religion? So I'm not, but with that being said, that's my opinion, right? But with that being said, I'm never about restricting people's ability, at least currently in this country, to practice their religion or have their religious beliefs. What I am advocating for is the audacity of those of us who don't believe it to tell them we don't believe it and tell them why we don't believe it. And let's be very clear, because when you advocate for what I advocate for, you are quite often accused of opposing people's religious freedom or wanting to restrict them. No, 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 no. Ain't nobody telling your ass you can't go to church. I'm just telling you, when you tell me how much Jesus is everything to you, I'm be like, okay, cool. I just don't believe that. And I think people, just like you think people who believe should run around telling everybody what they believe, I think people who don't believe should run around telling people who believe it's not true. That's all. It ain't really that ain't that crazy. Ain't nobody trying to persecute your religion or take you out your church. We just trying to tell you shit ain't true. That's all. Carry on.
Protect women from liberal brainwashing, but the overlap in ideology can't be ignored, and the bigotry and hatred that the ideology fosters can't be argued away by simply verbally denying that they stand for that. And while there are vague ties to tech billionaires like Peter Thiel, I don't think that there's a vast conspiracy being fueled with like Koch brothers levels of money underground, but they are following the Koch playbook. It's not enough to stay in their lane. They need to create a multi-pronged approach that includes education through the founding of Christian schools, what can loosely be called scholarship through their small printing presses, public policy touted online through their social media, and now politicians. Indoctrinate, lobby, and legislate. And with J.D. Vance and Trump in the White House, they've got their fingers on the buttons of power necessary to implement their plan for a Christian
Wait,
nation.
I don't know what this means. This means Jester, does this mean you voted for Trump at the top of the ballot and then protest Democrats down the rest of the? I'm confused, but I'm glad you voted. And for the record, y'all, I'm not here to tell anybody how to vote. I think everybody should vote for Kamala Harris, but that's my opinion, and you should only consider my opinion when it comes to who to vote for if you value my opinion as something that might be valuable information to consider when you vote. So like, I don't hate anybody. I'm not mad at like people I know who, voted in a way I don't agree with. I don't think it's good. I don't agree with it. But just to be clear, I'm not like mad at any of my friends who voted third party or decide not to vote. It's not a personal thing. But yeah, I'm doing this to hopefully convince people who are undecided or on the fence or who haven't voted yet, and who may be thinking about voting independent or third party or not voting. Yeah, I would love for a person to tell me I wasn't going to vote for Kamala, but you convinced me to vote for Kamala. That would be amazing. Or I was going to vote for Trump and you convinced me to stay home and drink rat poison. I'll accept that too.
Plan for America.
You voted against the Republicans. Awesome. Appreciate you, Jester. Way to go.
It's clearly laid out in this.
Well, no, just because you said the protest votes, and I wasn't sure if that applied to just the protest votes or all the votes. So that's where I got confused, Jester. That's where I got confused. But now I understand that all of the decisions were to avoid Republicans. Appreciate you. I also voted early. Not that anybody cares, but I voted blue up and down the ballot And I also voted for who I think are the liberal candidates for school board. And I think that was kind of it. My ballot was kind of boring this year. There weren't like any cool like ballot initiatives or funding proposals. There really wasn't much to vote on other than candidates.
Christian National Manifesto. It says, "We affirm that the specific short-term priorities of Christian nationalism in the context of the United States are to call our nation in her laws formally to acknowledge the lordship of Christ, to declare solemn days of humility and repentance, to abolish abortion, to define marriage as the covenant union of a biological male and a biological female, to de-weaponize the federal and state bureaucracies which target Christians for censorship and persecution, to secure our borders and defend against foreign invaders, to recapture our national sovereignty from godless global entities who present a grave threat to civilization like the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, etc., and to exercise restraint in international military intervention and adventurism in overseas democracy building." And that sounds strikingly familiar because William Wolfe helped edit this manifesto, and William Wolfe helped the architect of Project 2025 embed Christian nationalism into as much of that project as possible. It mirrors the same far-right talking points veiled in religious rhetoric that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump harp on about: abortion, censorship, the administrative state, immigrants, globalization, and nationalist protectionism. So do not be mistaken. J.D. Vance and these Theo bros will deny any connection. They'll deny any collusion, and they have a certain level of plausible deniability to do so. But Trump and Vance are actively engaging in dog whistles to signal to these groups that they are on their side. And if Trump gets elected, Project 2025 will hit his desk on day one, and his second in command will have direct links to Christian nationalists.
See, here's what's interesting too about that is comparing this to the video we did before. This is another example of the right and left being completely different on this. The right is doing the coalition building, right? Whether you're just one of those kind of old school, you know, one of those respectable Republicans who really just wishes this was still the party of Nixon and Reagan, right? You're going to vote for fucking Trump, right? But it's so funny how these Theo bros understand that in the interest of electability, in the interest of gaining power, in the interest of motherfucking winning, yeah, once in a while Trump distances himself. Once in a while he acts like he's not really down with the Christian nationalist. He acts like he's not really interested in a Christian theocracy. He'll say he hasn't read Project 2025 and really doesn't want anything to do with it. Does that have them saying Donald Trump failed their purity test and now they're not going to vote for him? Or do they understand that with the dog whistles and the comments, and they can take a step back and they can look at what he said, who he works with, how he moves, who he's put in positions of power, and say, no, that's our guy. No, that's our guy. No, we vote for him. We definitely gonna get this Christian nationalism thing popping. Oh, that bitch Kamala gets in here. Oh, no. The Jews, he married to a Jew. The Jews is gonna have rights, and the Muslims are gonna have rights, and we're gonna have an open border, and she wants a ceasefire in Gaza. Jesus is never coming back if we get a ceasefire in Gaza, right? They're not having the problem we having. Trump don't have no purity test to pass. So it's just really interesting. Like, they're fine with a dog whistle. Now on the left, Kamala has come out. She's like, excuse me, is this thing on? Yeah, I support a ceasefire in Gaza. And they're like, nope, not enough. Nope, we're voting for Jill Stein. We're voting for the Workers' Party. We're staying home. We're uncommitted. Y'all see what I'm saying? She gives you explicit, I am the best choice you have. I support the thing you want. They're like, nope, not enough. Trump dog whistles and says, Proud Boys. I'm down with them. And they're like, that's our guy. Because they understand power. They understand power. They understand being organized. They understand saying what it takes to win. They got that shit down. We need to learn a lesson. Mohode, what
would
up,
advocate
Ryan?
not only for doing away with the 19th Amendment, but also with the pesky First Amendment too, and actually with the whole damn Constitution. And as imperfect and up for criticism as our forefathers were, I think it's safe to say that it's far more self-loathing and America-hating to say that
Appreciate you,
their
Ryan.
Constitution
Definitely.
is dead and should be thrown out and replaced with a single interpretation of the Bible and nationwide devotion to a Christian God, and that our diversity in cultures and beliefs is a thing to be ashamed of and done away with. That's not the country I want to live in, and allowing the tyranny of a vocal minority of radical religious cultists dictate how our entire country should be run is contrary to the ethos of what I think a majority of Americans believe in. We can criticize our history and
Yeah,
try
no,
to
that's
right past
true.
wrong.
Toto, they actually think that maybe even that's why some of these right-wing assassination attempts have happened, is like when Trump says certain things, like if he backtracks on abortion or something like that, then some of the real nut jobs actually, he does fail that purity test. But that's usually people way, 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 way out on the fringe, right? Not people who are strategically trying to cost him swing states.
Wrongs, while also working towards building a country that is inclusive and feels safe for everyone, because we care about our communities and the future that we're building for the next generations. That is not the country we will be building if Trump and Vance win in 2 weeks. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Comment your voting plan below. When will you vote? How will you get there? Are you registered? Go to iwillvote.com to quickly and easily check your voter registration and come up with a plan. You can vote by mail. You can vote early. I'm someone who votes day of. I just love being involved in the thrill of it in the moment. My polling center is a couple blocks from my house, so on Tuesday, November 5th, I plan on walking over after breakfast to cast my vote for Kamala Harris. Tell me your plan below. Writing it out makes it much more likely that you'll actually do it.
All right, y'all. I think that's true. So definitely write out your voting plan. Throw it in the chat if you want. Like I said, I already voted, so this is my part of telling you guys my voting plan. I voted. I moved to New Jersey over the summer, so I had to register to vote. I registered online. I also sent in an application for permanent absentee voting. When in my state, you don't have to have a reason. You can just request to be an absentee voter, and you can indicate that you will do that for all future elections. So I sent that in, and they emailed me a ballot. Not emailed me, they sent me a physical ballot in the mail. So they mailed me a ballot. And I had to fill it out, follow the instructions, put it in the little envelope. And then there is actually my county has various. You can return the ballot to the office if you want. You can mail it in if you'd like. But there's also the county has set up like certain boxes like for people to deposit mail-in ballots, and there happens to be one on the campus that I work at. So the day I voted, the day I filled out my ballot, I wasn't working on campus, but I put it in my bag. And the next day when I went to campus, I deposited, and that's it. And that's my voting plan, and I did it, and it feels good to be done. And now I'm just trying to see what I can do to help at the last minute. It feels very last minute. It feels like there's not very much I can do. I don't interact with a ton of Christians like in this space. So I wish there were more. I wish there were more like. It's weird. I don't wish there were more Trump supporters in my life, but at this time, if there were more, y'all know what I mean. Like if there were more Trump people in my life, like I'd be trying to convince Trump people to not vote for Trump. But there's not a lot of Trump people in my life. There are more leftists in my life and left-leaning people, and so I thought it's much more likely that the issue I'm having in my community that I could maybe have some influence on is people who are either going to sit out the election or people who are going to protest vote third party. And again, I'm not mad at anybody who chooses to do so, but I wanted to articulate my reasons why I don't think it's a good idea and why I think they should reconsider and hopefully decide to vote for Kamala Harris, because it's about keeping Trump out, and about what terrible things will happen to all of us if we don't do that. So that's what I decided to do. And I am also, I guess, if we're going to put our plans out there, and that makes it more likely that we'll do it, I'm also going to try to find some time next week to do a little bit of phone banking for Kamala Harris before it's all said and done. Usually, I know campaigns, from my experience, they're really looking for the most help with their get out the vote efforts, typically the week of, and literally right on through election day. And so who knows if I'll, how much time I'll get to do that. I know I have to do like a half-hour training, and then I'm going to try to dedicate at least an hour or two to doing it. And I'm going to also try to get a friend to do it with me. And I'm going to suggest that my family volunteer an hour or two. I don't know if they will. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And who knows if we'll get to talk to any undecided voters and change any minds. But even if we don't, just being a body on a phone, making calls, you're sort of helping, right? Because even if you're not taking the undecided voters, you're at least calling a bunch of people, and hopefully then somebody else is able to be talking to undecided voters. So yeah, and I would suggest that. I know if you go to the Harris website, they kind of have information there about how to do it. It seems pretty easy. It seems like you just sign up, and then maybe there's like a Zoom session or something they say they host them daily. You do like a 30-minute training. I'm thinking about doing that on Sunday or Monday. So if anybody else is interested in phone banking or volunteering for the Harris campaign, I would definitely suggest going to their website. And yeah, maybe some of you will consider phone banking as well. So those are my plans. And yeah, I think if I talk to somebody who's not going to support the Harris Walls ticket, then I would hope that I could have a conversation with them and convince them. That'd be awesome. I appreciate the vote of confidence. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Oh, Katina said, fortunately, most of the Trumpers I know are not the voting type. Hey, that's a win. That's a win. If they stay home, that is great for the rest of us. All right, y'all. This was super, super fun, and thank y'all so much for showing up. We did our part. I've got a couple other streams I want to try to get in before the election. Hopefully with the same purpose, just convincing as many last-minute people as we can to vote and to help out. Otherwise, we'll be back on Sunday for Hot Program with my one black friend. And Monday over on Skeptic Haven at 8 p.m. we'll be doing Black Free Thinkers, and we have Stan Gray who will be our guest this Monday. So looking forward to that. Also tomorrow, I believe Michael Beverly said he's going to be releasing a video that we recently just recorded. So y'all may know that Michael Beverly is where I did the Michael Behe debate. So if you haven't checked that out, head over to Michael Beverly's channel. You can see that debate. But also, he made a really long video. It was like 3.5 hours, where myself and 8 other content creators responded to some slavery apologetics. And there was some things I really wanted to say in that video that I didn't get the opportunity to say, mostly like a more detailed sort of exposition of my opinion that Christianity itself is the desire to be a slave, and that the way, the language, and the sort of romanticization of being God's property really, I think, limits Christians' ability to give a full-throated condemnation of the practice. And so we recorded a video and talked about that. And so Michael Beverly said he'll be releasing that tomorrow. So look for that. And hey, that should mean you got a little bit of pocket locker in your life all weekend. Otherwise, please join the Discord. And of course, if you want to hang out with me in real time, we will be hanging out and gather all weekend. I actually got a concert to go to tomorrow, so I will be out tomorrow, running around doing some things. But yeah, for the most part, like every day, all weekend, we'll be in gather, hanging out. So that's where the after party will be. Come hang out with the gang. If you're watching later, you can come hang out and gather. We'll probably be there whenever you're watching. But you know, if you watch later, please do leave us a comment down below. Just like Lee just said, let me know your voting plan. Also, let me know what you think of the question of the day. Do you think it's a good idea right now to be doing protest votes? Hey, we had some people in the chat today who did some protest votes, and we didn't run them up out of here. So even if you disagree with me, go ahead, let me know what your thoughts are. I appreciate hearing from people even when they don't agree with me. So you know, it's all good. And yeah, leave a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Please, please, please go subscribe to Legion Miller channel if you haven't. And we'll see you next time. Said I'm gone.